I need a motion to reconvene the meeting.
Motion.
All in favor? I'd like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Linda, will you lead us through that one today?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you.
Will the district clerk please call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Panico, Board President.
Here.
Mr. Washaw, Vice President.
Here.
Mrs. Augulus, Board Trustee.
Present.
Ms. Kennedy, Board Trustee. Mrs. Napolitano-Furno, Board Trustee. Then we have Dr. Linda Adams,
Present.
Mr. D. Middleman,
Present.
Mr. Kohler-Hefar,
Present.
and Ms. Villarreal. And myself, Jesse Kemp, the District Clerk.
Thank you, Jesse. Before we start, I'm going to ask that we come to a consensus to change the agenda just for tonight. There's a lot of discussion, so I want to get the business end of it done first, and then we can have plenty of time for all the discussions. So I would need a motion and a second to change the agenda.
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so Jesse, just so you know, the discussion will be on the back end. All right.
Mrs. Panico, did you want to also add the change that we did in exec to
Which one was that, Linda?
the agenda, I'm sorry, personnel agenda, I'm sorry, I'm blanking out. On the personnel agenda, we wanted to add that one resolution to the personnel agenda.
It was close. Okay, yeah, we could add that on. All right, so I gotta. All right, so I need a motion and a second for the minutes of the Board of Education from September 4th, 2020 special meeting. Mylene, you motioned?
Second.
Motion.
Jackie seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're gonna skip the discussion and the public comment for now. We'll do that at the end. I need a motion and a second for recommended action personnel matters, Schedule 1. Some resignations, terminations, leaves of absence.
Motion.
I need a second. I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Schedule 2, appointments, 10-year salary changes. I need a motion and a second.
Motion.
Lee seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, consent agenda. I need a motion and a second to discuss the consent agenda, items 2 through 6.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Eileen, is the field usage is on new discussion and it's also on your consent, so is that a discussion you want to have now?
The field, why is it on the consent? Oh, was that,
This is actually additional organizations who fulfilled all of the requirements in order to be eligible for permits.
actually, when I saw that one, I saw there was 2 on there that didn't have any yeses on the lines.
So what we did at the last meeting was we had the board move them forward, so when all their paperwork was in place, we could begin to give them permits.
Right,
So no one will actually get a permit until all their paperwork is in place.
so, but why am I gonna approve them if they don't have all their paperwork in place?
There's only 4.
So there was 6. Hold on, let me just get my sheet.
I only see 4 that are approved.
Between now and the next board meeting, which is the 17th.
All right, if they don't
October,
have it, then, yeah, because I can't find my sheet now. Okay,
So are we going to have a discussion on payment? I guess because it's on,
well, those are the different ones. We're gonna have that's a different discussion.
Yes, this is
Okay.
just to allow these folks, when they get all of their the paperwork together, that we can start giving them permits right away.
Right,
okay.
right.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Yeah, this
Well,
is
they can't go on the fields until they have all that paperwork.
correct. Mrs. Piano in the business office.
Lee, you gotta turn your microphone on when you're speaking. Okay, thank you. All right, so any other discussion about this?
I just have one question.
Mm-hmm.
This was a very generous scholarship by Mason and Mason. Is it something that they allocated for any particular field or department for the scholarship?
I don't know the answer to that.
Is this the same family that donated a house because they were very successful? Do you know? I don't know. The doctors, I'm not sure.
It could be, and I will give you what their scholarship application looks like. If you'd like, I can put it in the next FYI.
Yes, I don't know. Is it the district determines how the money would be
It depends on how they
written up in the
stipulated it.
scholarship?
Yeah, exactly. It's how it's stipulated by the donor.
That's what I figured. Okay.
So that's what you're asking? We're gonna accept it anyway?
Yeah, yeah,
Marie?
yeah.
Yeah, I can put that in
yeah.
your update.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right, so does anybody have any other discussion on that? On the consent agenda?
No?
I don't know if, Bridget would like you just to go very quickly over the, budget transfers, because I know there was quite a few.
I did have a question on the budget transfers. There's one line, the employee health, employee fund, right? What's the name of it? Yeah, that we transferred over to cover all sorts of stuff for this. It's over $1 million. Right? So my question is, are we doing that now, line by line, to tighten up that budget? Because if we can transfer $1 million out of that, there's some padding elsewhere, cushion, as we like to call it.
So in my update to the board, the October 13th meeting, this is when we ran out of.
I don't know what that means either.
Green no line.
Oh, somebody has to turn this off. Okay, there you go.
So in my update to the board on Friday, there's an explanation that for this board meeting, the budget transfers are going to cover all teaching positions for any positions that were taken on between and board approved September 4th and the September 8th Board of Education meetings, as well as the positions for tonight's Board of Education meeting. For the TAs, for the aides, and for the 12 custodial positions, the remaining monies will come out of the presentation for Cullen and Danowski, which will be our audit, the external auditor. And then from that point, we can discuss reserves and surplus from the remainder of 1920 to determine what we'll do going forward. And then going back to looking back the 14-15 year through current on all those expenditures, we're also going to move monies over. It'll be the same 2-page line by line for each and every single thing. It'll be the difference of that and then utilizing reserves to what we can legally use and also surplus from there. This is just really to keep everything in its own little pocket. So the virtual teaching staff and the creation of those virtual budget codes to keep everything the way that it should be, because we have to do 2 transparency documents. One is through ESSA and one is just through the Department of Budget. They're really time consuming, they're really annoying, and now with the pandemic, it's just gonna be an accounting nightmare. So this is just to make sure we're good to go there.
Thank you. So can I have a motion and a sec? Is there any more discussion?
I just have one question.
Go ahead.
What was,
Put your microphone back on.
I don't know what the proper, code or how it was, labeled, but how much did the district receive in COVID relief money?
209,000,
How much?
209.
209. So that obviously did not make up for anywhere nearly of what we spent on COVID expenses. Are we looking to get any more relief on that?
That is subject to Washington, and that's what all 50 states are waiting on in the world of education.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No? Okay, I need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda, items 2 through 6.
Motion.
All in favor? Before we go on to the discussion items for tonight, I just want to make mention that if you're 6 feet apart in the audience and you need to remove your mask, as long as you're 6 feet apart, you can do that. That's the Department of Health rules. I know I have problems with my sinuses, so for me, I can't breathe through the mask. So if you guys want to do that, as long as you're 6 feet apart, you're more than welcome to do that. I'm 6 feet apart from these guys, and they're not allowed to come any closer to me. One other thing I did want to mention, there was an allegation brought about one of our board members by a member of the public. And that allegation was looked into, and that board member was never formally cleared. The investigation cleared her, but it was never said in public. So I just wanted to say that now, that the board member, when this happened at the board meeting, and it's a public meeting, the board member was cleared. And now we can move on to the discussion items. So Linda, I'm gonna let you lead that off. One other point, well, I can do that at public portion, that's fine.
So the first discussion item is the 2020-2021 school clubs. So at the reorganization meeting, the Board of Education actually put on the agenda the clubs that run generally in the middle schools and the elementary schools. And then on the July 28th meeting, we did table the high school club appointments. At that point, we were figuring out the plan to reopen our schools safely in the pandemic that we're dealing with right now. And we felt that it would be time to think about that later as we move into the school year and how things might run. So in the last FYI that I sent to the Board of Education, we projected that there are definitely clubs that will not be able to run because a lot of them are hands-on, and we would like to hold a lot of those clubs in abeyance still for a variety of reasons. The first being that November, we will be getting another Department of Budget update from the state to determine whether or not we're going to be able to receive our full state education, our state aid package. As of now, we've already decreased. We decreased in the 1920 school year. We lost how much money at that point?
We lost $600,000.
So we already had our 1920 allocation of state aid down by $600,000, and the state aid has decreased in certain lines by 20%. We did not receive our full state aid payments for July or for August for the 2021 school year. In September, we are receiving the full state aid payment, but we're not sure that we will ever see the 20% of the different line items that the governor had proposed and promised, and we built our budget on. So we invited the board to look at the clubs that we felt at this point would be the most detrimental to our system not to run. A lot of those are at the high school because we do feel the need, and we know that kids need to feel that they came together as part of the school district, which is one of the things that having clubs at the different grade levels. So the freshman club, the freshman, the different grade levels, so freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior clubs, which actually run the prom and all those kind of events for our different classes. And they would put together some kind of events for our kids to come together because they just came from our 2 middle schools. So we thought that the board should put those on the agenda today to open up those clubs. Just excuse me 1 second. I need to find the rest of the document unless someone has it in front of them. Mr. Kohifar, do you have it in front of you?
Advisors, the Honor Society.
So we were looking at the class advisors. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, it was the yearbook, the class advisors, the math, foreign language, business honor societies, the national honor societies, scholarship coordinator, social studies honor societies, and the student governments at the high school, and then student council and Tri-M honor society, and again, yearbooks at both the middle schools.
So we felt that this would be detrimental if we did not put these on today's agenda because a lot of our students are in the process of applying, our seniors are in the process of applying for colleges, and for them not to have these clubs functioning at this point, which give them their honor society status, as well as our juniors and our sophomores who potentially applied for honor society status in the spring and were not actually inducted. We're looking for the board to put those on. And then when we get the Department of Budget review in November, we'll go back to the other clubs and see which ones can actually run virtually and give the board a presentation as to which ones certainly couldn't run virtually and which ones would be able to run virtually at that point, provided that we have the state aid that we need.
With that, before you even do that, can you also give me a list of all the clubs that we have? And then just highlight the ones that we are approving tonight, or if we approve tonight?
Sure, I sent you the list of all the clubs that we had put on the agendas prior in the
On the-
FYI, but I can print it for you if you
Yes, if you
want
can give
them.
me a printout, that'd be great.
Sure, and you want me to highlight the ones that we're asking you to approve tonight?
Right.
Well, they were already approved, actually, as part
Oh,
of
from the
as part
consent
of the
agenda?
personnel schedule.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So yes,
So all those clubs we just mentioned, that Mr. Kohifar mentioned, have been approved tonight. It is the Business Honor Society, the Foreign Language Honor Society, the Freshman Class Advisor, the Junior Class Advisor, Mu Alpha Theta, which is the Math Honor Society, the National Honor Society, the National Honor Society Assistant, the Scholarship Coordinator, the Senior Class Advisor, Social Studies Honor Society, Sophomore Class Advisor, Student Government Assistant, Tri-M Honor Society, Yearbook, and Yearbook Assistant are all approved at the high school, at OBMS, National Junior Honor Society, Student Council 6th grade, Student Council 7th grade, Student Council, Tri-M Honor Society, Yearbook, and Yearbook Assistant, and at RMS, National Junior Honor Society, Student Council, Tri-M Honor Society, Yearbook, and Yearbook Assistant. So those have already been approved by the board to move forward beginning tomorrow.
okay, so then, does anybody else have anything to add?
Okay, so here we are, second full week of school. So we wanted to give you a reopening update.
Wait, that one should go last, because that's gonna be the longest one.
No, I'm gonna read from slides, it's gonna be fast, no discussion
No, but we have a lot of discussion on that.
on that. Okay, all right, so we'll leave that one
Right.
for last. Okay,
So do that one last, please. Thank you.
okay, quick update on driver's education. I'm gonna let Ms. Villarreal just give you a quick update.
Do you want me to go back to March, or do you want me to just talk about what we're doing now? Okay. Whew. Okay, good. That saves me 8 paragraphs. So September 10th, a letter went out to all Connecticut families. This is for families that were impacted by the spring driver education program. As you know, if you were Thursday, Friday driving sessions, you have 10 remaining sessions. If you were Thursday, Friday lecture, you have 6 remaining, and that's because the DMV closed and so on and so forth. You know all that. So starting September 21st, which was yesterday, online instruction continued for the remaining sessions. The DMV and its reopening and information that came out from the Department of Motor Vehicles and the State Education Department, they said that the classroom instruction portion can continue to operate remotely through the district. The remaining hours of driving sessions could continue under parent supervision, provided that they have a valid New York State driver's license. So after we sent the letter to parents, we put everything into Google Classroom, and parents will have to submit an affidavit or sign an affidavit just signifying that they completed the driving instruction, physical driving, that they have a valid New York State driver's license, so on and so forth. And the completion date is October 22nd. So that's finally good news, because we've been waiting so many months to continue that driver education program. So I appreciate your patience, and we're finally rolling.
Were there any parents that would do refunds, or that didn't want to complete it through them and went and just got their licenses? Did they get a refund for any part of that program?
Yes, so there is the remaining portion for the driving will be refunded, but the portion for the online instruction will not be refunded. So any families that wish to continue, through now, October 22nd, will be given that refund.
Do they have the option not to take the rest of the classes and get refunded the full amount? Or they have to take it now? I mean, what if they already got their license now? Maybe they aged out, the month came, you know what I mean?
So the only way that they would be able to get their license is that ConnectBot is limited in its options, because we couldn't provide the 5-hour certificate, which is the MV278, because we had to certify that they completed all instructional content, and no ConnectBot student, after executive order shut us down, was able to complete the portion online. So more than likely, all of those students will have to continue the online portion, but if not, to contact Cheryl Sosa and Paulette Marino, because they should definitely be notified of that.
Anybody have any questions? Next.
Okay, next discussion is field usage.
Okay.
So I believe it was the last board meeting, it might have been the board meeting before that. The Board of Education suggested that we move forward with allowing our public organizations who meet all of our requirements to use our outdoor fields. One of the things that we had discussed over time, many different board meetings, was the liability that remains with the district to ensure that we are upholding the executive orders, which is 6 foot of social distancing, mask wearing, and the like, in order to maintain safety within the pandemic. So the Board of Education said that we should have security and buildings and grounds that our organizations would need to pay for, because you're not allowed to pay for private organizations through taxpayer dollars. So when we started to get those permits in, we started to see the costs of that original statement, which was 1 security guard for an organization each time that they had permit for, and 2 hours of buildings and grounds for each day that they had permits for. Some of those costs come into the multi-thousand dollars. And we know that that is not what the board intended. So earlier today, we spoke to the board about what some of those costs would be like. And in my opinion, the way the executive order now reads, it's really on the organization's shoulders to police their safety plan. So in order to have the permit, we have those safeguards that they have to be 50% ConnectWatch students and all the other check marks that we normally have. But an additional one is an appropriate safety plan that's been filed as per the guidelines, an executive order by Governor Cuomo. Some of those are that there's only 2 spectators per player, that they have 6 foot of social distancing between families, that masks are worn. And the other thing that we're asking is that we refrain from using playgrounds because we don't have the manpower to wipe them down between Saturday and Sunday. And generally our kids are out on them on Monday, and we are wiping them down, but to wipe them down from use of the weekend, we don't have the manpower to do that right now. So I'm suggesting that I'm recommending to the board that we right now forego the additional costs for our local organizations, allow those safety plans to be self-policed by the local organizations. I'm going to give everybody Mr. Flynn's personal cell phone number. Only kidding, Mr. Flynn. I'm going to give you the security desk, which is manned 24/7, 365. If you see things happening at these organization levels that is not following the executive orders, we're going to ask you to call us, because it is still our grounds, and the safety plan needs to be followed that had been filed by the organizations. So our security desk here is 631-244-2243. It rings in Mr. Flynn's home right by his bed, just in case you need him anytime. Feels like that, doesn't it, Mr. Flynn? But the truth is, we want our kids on our fields. We want the organizations to have robust programs. And my recommendation would be that if that safety plan, which has been filed as part of the permit process, is not being self-policed, and we do see things that are not going to keep our community healthy, that at that point their permits be rescinded. But right now, my recommendation is that we allow them to move forward with the permit process with no additional cost for additional security or additional buildings and grounds to be at their fields.
I did hear that people do use the playground, not these sportscape teams, but that playgrounds are being used and no one's reporting it. I haven't been there, I don't see, but I think Mr. Flynn should be aware of that. So especially more so on the north end than on the south end. So you should have your security aware that no one's supposed to be on there unless they're students during the week.
So the other piece of that is the community is requesting that we reopen pieces of the grounds. So for example, the executive order did shut down school grounds way back when in March. We barricaded off all of our fields, but the community is requesting to be allowed to walk the tracks when there are no students, as part of the school day and or some of our practices that we're about to start for our off-season practices. So there are really two things that I need the board to discuss and come to consensus on, whether we move forward without having additional cost for our local organizations, and whether we are looking to open the grounds, and if so, what portion of the grounds. The wiping of the sanitizing of our playgrounds is problematic and worrisome, but I'm not so sure we need to sanitize the track. So, you may want to look at those two different pieces, or even the tennis courts. So I think the board needs to decide what you want to open and whether or not you're willing to move forward with letting the organizations self-police their safety plans.
And the organizations monitoring themselves, as long as you stipulate that again to them, that people can report them if they're not. And I don't have a problem with the community and or these organizations using the track. So I'm one person.
The only question I have is, can we vote on this tonight? Okay.
Okay, let me,
Okay. Jackie would like to say something.
this is the thing. I think that we should allow the kids to use the playground. I think that you saw on the CDC that what they're saying, the new thing is that it doesn't live on desks. It doesn't live on metal for a long period of time. If parents are gonna allow their children if my kids are gonna go play on a playground, they played at their own risk. They're playing at their own risk. I think that we keep saying we're for parental choice, then let's really be for parental choice. We're taxpayers. We're paying the money to have these schools and all these upgrades done with tax money and with grants and everything else. It's unfair to tell all of our parents they can't walk the track, they can't go and play basketball with their kids. I just don't think I think we should just open it. I think we should do things in a certain way that we've been doing a little, nothing, a little. It's time to just say, okay, things have been going good in regards to people getting sick. The numbers are at an all-time low. So I just think that let the kids play, let the parents use sanitizer, put up a sign that says, play at your own risk. Please wash your hands. Please use sanitizer. The Connecticut School District is not responsible for. I just think there are certain things that we have to start to realize. We're policing them, but the kids, they're just kids. They see a playground, they want to run to it. I just disagree. And I also think that, the track, it's time for it to be open because we have sports that run on a track.
Tennis courts as well.
Well, tennis courts, I got to tell you, should have been open already because tennis courts in other districts, and I know this because of where I work, in other districts have been playing all along because tennis was one of the few sports they said you're already socially distanced and there's nothing going on there. You're already across the net. You hit the ball with it. Come on. That all should be open to allow our public to have some exercise.
If we open the playgrounds, then we should have custodial staff there to have them clean Sunday before the students come back on Monday. The rest of everything else could be open.
Well, you could have them go out and spray.
In the
Don't they
morning
have to
on Monday,
spray
then
if
I'm not paying overtime on a Sunday when overnight the virus is gonna die anyway. That's silly.
Is that how it works? Okay.
It's outside. Oh, yeah, okay, we could do that. I'm with you there.
I'm going to play on the north side myself at the playground. I'm going to go play this weekend.
You don't have to.
All right, so, I guess I'll call for a motion in a second to open things up.
I need two different
Wait.
things.
Okay,
So the first is whether you want to have the community organization self-police, which would mean no additional cost for additional, and then the second would be opening up the ground. So two different
okay,
things.
so the first motion then is to open up, the fields to the community organizations and they will self-police and follow their guidelines.
We said till dusk too, till,
Yeah, well, dusk, we're gonna close the tracks and stuff at dusk. At nighttime, you don't wanna keep that open anyway. And then it won't cost the taxpayers any extra money. So the first motion is for the grounds to self-police, and open up. I need a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The second motion is to open up the grounds, the tennis courts, the track, and so forth, to the public, the playgrounds, to the public at their own risk. So I need a motion and a second for that.
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So while we're on this, kind of on this topic.
Put your microphone on.
So Linda, while we're sort of on this topic, by allowing the outside use, which I obviously support 100%, we are having some parents are asking about using indoor fields. The pool, I guess, some of the civics may be looking to come back inside the buildings and things like that. Can you kind of address that this is probably not the best time to be entertaining in any indoor activities, because we have not allowed our clubs to start. At least that's my opinion. We haven't even allowed clubs to start. We shouldn't really allow any other indoor activities to start until we service our kids first.
So the decision was made by the board at the last board meeting to do the outside events for a lot of reasons. And really the biggest one is the ability to sanitize the areas again for our kids indoors. So in order to mitigate risk indoors, we are not allowing any permits inside. We are not allowing visitors into the building. People who need to drop things off are leaving them in the security vestibules, even during the school day. At the end of the school day, the amount of cleaning and sanitizing that has to happen in order for us to be safe to reopen the next day is exorbitant. And I have to give a big shout out to our custodial and our buildings and ground staff who have truly stepped up to make sure that our buildings are safe, that they're clean and that they're sanitary. Tonight, we're adding to their work because they need to come back into this room, into the bathroom, into the LGI and any the part of the hallways. And they're going to re-sanitize the door handles. They're going to re-sanitize. So the amount of work by having other people in the building is absolutely going to be over the top right now inside. So in my recommendation, I wouldn't move to bring anybody inside other than our own students. And right now we're holding off on clubs because we still need to get through the fall, get through the reopening, and then we can see if some of the rules get relaxed, if our community transmission rate stays down, we can make those decisions over time. I would not recommend right now reopening to indoor facility use for outside folks at this point.
I
But
just
that's up to the
I
board.
just wanted you to reiterate that what is involved when you start allowing the public to come inside the buildings.
Right. We have to re-clean. They're going to re-clean this space. They're going to re-sanitize this space just from having the board meeting tonight. The bathrooms that we have open for the public, they'll have to re-clean and re-sanitize. We met in the LGI, they'll have to re-clean and re-sanitize that. So every time someone comes in and touches, it just adds another layer of cleaning and sanitization that needs to happen.
Can I just say, I think we missed something. I'm looking at my list and I don't know how we go back exactly. The Art Honor Society, was that on the list? Because I had checked off all the clubs that I had, and that was one of them. Isn't that one of the Honor Society? I don't know if I'm on or not.
Turn the red light on. Turn yours off.
Is that, because it sounded like we had all the honor societies. That's one of the honor
So you
societies?
know what? We missed that one.
Okay, can we just make sure that that's on there, if that's okay? Because I wanted to make sure all the honor societies were on there, not just,
So we are.
can we do that?
We can put it in right now, but we don't know who the advisor is because we don't have it in front of us. So we can definitely put it on the next agenda. And if you would allow us to, we can have that person start now and we can backdate it. It's really up to you guys.
Can we do that? Is everybody good? I just want to make sure we
I'm
have
okay
all
with
the
that.
honor societies.
Okay.
Are you okay
I'm
with that,
sorry,
Mark and Lee?
that was missed off my list.
No worries. I had it on mine. so
Mark and
I
Lee are
just
also
didn't-
okay, so you have a consensus to do
Okay,
that. That's
so
fine.
we will appoint that person retroactively.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so we move forward with opening the grounds to the public till dusk and not incurring additional fees for our local organizations. That's wonderful. Wrap room is something I know that a board member wanted to speak about.
Okay. I go back to, I think this year, so far, my understanding is nobody's been in there. Is that correct? So the room hasn't been utilized? Okay. All right, so if we're looking into cutting some funds and cutting some programs, I would prefer. I know, I don't want to get too close to them. I don't really care. I'm out in the public all the time, so for me, but I just don't want to see us cutting a program or cutting sports or cutting clubs, things that the children are utilizing for a small portion of children that get to utilize this other, and in my own opinion, failing program. I know that we were gonna have Ms. Santos take over it and revamp it, and I was very happy with mental health stance on that. But I would love to hear if there was a different option you could go with that had a much lower price tag on it. Because what we're doing in that room, if there's nobody in there, what are we doing with the personnel that's in there? So for 2 weeks, there's been personnel in the room, yes?
So the personnel has changed, which was one of the board recommendations earlier this summer. So actually on today's board agenda is the additional YFS worker who will actually be the largest majority of the session in that room. And that there's no dearth of things for a social worker to do if there's no one in that room.
Well, I have no problem with, as you all know, I've been wanting more social workers in every building and psychologists. If it was up to me and we had the funds, I would put extra in every single building,
Right. So
especially after COVID.
so we did that.
But I would like to motion to abolish the wrap room.
Okay, so the change would be, Mr. Kolhefar, it was put in his personnel update this weekend, just so that you could see it.
But I would like to see if there's something that Gail could do, if Ms. Santos could do something with this additional YFS as part of a new initiative that maybe just was an initiative with YFS or psychologists or something like that.
Actually, Ms. Napolitano, I just met with the secondary YFS coordinators today, and I thank you. You did board approve the newest social worker to our team who was assigned to the wrap room. But to your point, there's a great prevention needed and support to our staff. We have assessed the secondary schools via a social emotional survey, and I'm happy to report that there's stability across the grade level representations and across the high school in and of itself, 25%. Each grade is represented 25%. So
That's awesome, amazing, thank
so
you.
it's 1,800 students, and 1,600 students responded to the survey, which is remarkable and impressive. And of those statistics, many present as well-adjusted and say they have the coping skills. We've targeted those students that have indicated that they're nervous, that they're anxious, and they're worried. And we've also identified those students that were remarkably in need or noted that they needed life skills and basic needs. Basic needs, as you know, could translate to foods, clothing, support, a home. So with great sensitivity, the staff has already reached out to all of those persons. So to answer your question, there's much that we can do outside of the constraints or the logistics of that room to meet the greater good with that staff member.
Perfect, but so can we do that, calling it a new initiative of some sort, so we don't have to have a wrap room, so to speak?
Well, and I would say that we would still commit, because the aim of the wrap room, the restorative justice component, is to teach the children to be reflective of their actions, to learn why or perhaps what triggered them, and most importantly, to be self-reflective and learn a new behavior and a new reaction to the next similar situation. We're trying to, rather just provide a consequence to all students, help them grow, evolve, and self-manage their behaviors. So that will be incorporated into any initiative that we define, and we will work on that.
Okay, the whole
Okay.
thing is, like I said, I'm still,
So,
see, it's not gonna cut the cost, is what I'm saying. See, I wanted
No, the wrap room, if you're saying as in the structure, I won't have to provide training, but this evening, we just board approved the newest member to the high school staff as a new
Right,
social worker.
can we utilize that person
So I'll take
in
that.
some sort of new initiative
Yes.
and abolish the wrap room.
Correct.
I'm
Yes.
fine with that.
What I just said is, I'm sorry, I just made sure that you understand that we're mindful that to teach students new behaviors and to help them be self-reflective and improve their social emotional learning, they don't have to be in the wrap room. We can do it through
Right,
another
that's-
form or program.
That's what I want to hear. I want a different option,
Yes,
try to go in a different direction from the wrap room to a more mental health initiative rather than a restorative justice.
very timely.
And in doing that, I think it'll be more helpful after COVID,
Yes,
and it makes more sense financially.
agreed. Very doable.
We also, we have already appointed people to that wrap room. What happens there, Linda?
So they actually weren't appointed to the wrap room. What we did was a part of 4 or 5 different teachers, their scheduling is that assignment. So in order to eliminate some of the costs, 0.2 of each one of those teachers, except for the science teacher, because it would, the way the seniority scale works, the last person in seniority is a chemistry teacher, and the person who is actually teaching in the wrap room is not a chemistry teacher. So the way, if you excess a 0.2 of science, you'd be accessing a 0.2 of a chemistry teacher, and we can't do that. So the other 4 content areas, actually I think it's 5 because I think there's a second language component as well. The other 5 content areas, we would lose 0.2 of the last person hired. So in order to do that, I would suggest that we do that at the next board meeting because we have to name that person and excess 0.2 of their FTEs.
Just the one person?
No, it would be a social studies teacher, an English teacher, a math teacher, and a LOT teacher.
Just
0.2 of each.
correct me if I'm wrong, one second, Lee. There's an English teacher that we have assigned to that room or a math teacher that we've assigned to that room.
They haven't done nothing this week.
That person doesn't, give me a second. That person doesn't get it taken off. We're gonna take it off the last person that was hired for math?
Correct, that's how.
So they're still gonna get paid whether we do it or not.
No, their assignment would change. So let's
So
say.
they'll be assigned to different things for those sections that they were gonna go into the wrap room.
Correct. They would be assigned the 0.2 of the last person's in caseload.
Okay, I see it. All right, that's fine by me. Thank
So
you.
we need to get you the names of the people.
So the people that are in there now, if they're high seniority, they don't lose anything
No,
by abolishing the wrap room. The person that was hired last loses
correct,
for that department.
correct.
Okay, I have a couple questions. One, so how much are you really saving? You're keeping the YFS worker, you're letting go of 0.2?
Of each department, that's 1.0.
Isn't it roughly like $20,000 per person?
Mr. Kolifer, you have, go ahead.
I looked into, yeah. Yeah, that's
Okay,
okay.
so now my next question is, say all of a sudden these mostly special ed kids, am I right about that? Or no?
So the original intent of the program, special education students who are suspended for any reason at all, more than 10 days in a year, need to go to a CSE for a potential change in placement. So in order for that not to occur, because we wanted to keep as many of our special education students in-house, the idea behind the WRAP program originally was that we would give them their normal days worth of their IEP, but in the WRAP room. So it was a special education teacher and then the 5 content areas with some counseling interspersed. That in special education world is actually not a change of program. It's not an out of school or in school. They're actually getting their program just in a different setting. Because if a special education student, again, it gets in school or out of school suspended for more than 10 days, it triggers a CSE and a change in placement potentially. So that was the beginning piece of it. It was also to help kids begin to do that self-reflective program, to take a look at their behaviors and what was causing them to act out, and hopefully have them think about that and
You're
think about.
talking about the regular ed kids now.
So no, but both. So we had the program put together so that it met the need of that 10th day student, which they would never get to because they could go to the WRAP program instead and get their education there. but it was for both special education and general education students. For that same reason, talk about why you did what you did, your behavior, what was the cause of your behavior, what was the consequence of your behavior, and having those kind of discussions rather than just saying, you're out of school suspended, we'll see you in 5 days.
Okay, so now, what would happen if a bunch of special ed, through the year, we'll say 8 special ed students have to be suspended or whatever for 10 days, and there's no wrap room? You're gonna call it a different room and bring them in, or are you gonna send them to BOCES? How is that gonna work?
So if they're in school suspension and they're not given their program, that's considered a change in placement. So we would be looking after those 10 days, it's a legal issue. After those 10 days, it would trigger CSE, and we would have to look for a different program potentially.
Where would that be?
Generally, the next step is BOCES,
And what would that cost
80,000 plus.
per child?
How many kids has that actually happened with in the last year or two?
I would have to get those numbers for you. It was far fewer last year because we had the RAP program to
Because
keep
my
them.
understanding is there's another option for those children.
Okay.
I'm asking, is there another, I spoke to a couple of special education teachers, and they told me that there was other options, that you don't have to send them, and there was other ways to get around that 10-day.
There's not.
Well, I'm asking, that's what I'm asking.
No, it's a legal requirement that if a child is out of school or in school suspended for 10 days, it triggers a CSE to look for a change in placement, because if the child is not being successful in the placement, you need to find a place where the child can be successful. So in many places, they reset the clock after 10. Well, we have legal advice that I think you folks all got about the idea that you can't reset the clock. There's no resetting the clock. The CSE can look for a behavioral plan potentially, but you would want to put that in place prior to the 10 days. And the majority, when you get to 10 days, you're supposed to have, it triggers a CSE, it triggers a nexus discussion. And generally you look for a change in placement where a child can be successful. If they're out 10 days, they're not being successful. That's 2 full weeks of education they're missing.
Okay,
I would love to know how many, though, it actually has occurred within the last 2 years.
Okay.
Because like I said, 2 weeks have been in school, right? And there hasn't been an incident, correct?
That's correct.
We have half the amount of students in the school.
Yeah.
We have additional YFS now.
I agree.
We have
Different
the same
situation.
amount of psychologists. We have guidance counselors. I'm just saying, we have a lot of support in this high school level.
Agreed. So we're going to get you the names of the people to adjust their FTEs next time.
And can I continue asking questions?
Sure.
Couple? And for the regular student who gets in trouble and they're trying to make them understand why they do what they do, what happens to those children? Are they going to a different room? Or are they just going to be suspended? What's going to happen there?
So there's still the in-school suspension program and the out-of-school suspension. We do have the alternative high school program that's here in the evenings. That part of that is our own students and part of that is a BOCES program. If we have more mental health professionals, which folks just appointed tonight.
You
We
have
can certainly-
you have an extra one at the high school now?
Now we do, because she was slated to be part of the RAP program, but now we will utilize her to talk to the kids who are having difficulty.
We could cover other areas in the schoolhouse that probably would be a better way to actually use the YFS.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, no matter what we do through the year, whichever way the board decides to do this, I still would like a monthly report to see if we do have any special ed children. And if we do have to send them to BOCES, and the cost factor on this. It'd be good to find out what's going on this year. And if we need it again another year, because it's going to cost us $800,000 for sending these kids, I think we should be aware of that.
So I have a question. May I? So if a kid gets suspended for 4 days, 5 days, then that means these kids can just run on the streets and do whatever they want?
In out-of-school suspension, they're out of the schoolhouse.
So there's nothing that we can do to look after these kids that are now no longer kind of supervised?
Sure. The students that are supervised, what Dr. Adams was referencing, there's the alternative high school, which it consists of both our district students and others that send to the program. That is one step out of the schoolhouse. A least restrictive environment for all students that are suspended, all secondary students, that's grade 7 or 6 through 12. The students go to the Alternative Learning Center. So they're provided 4 days a week. It's open. It starts at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. District transports to and from. So admittedly, we don't know what the children are doing during the day, but we're hoping that they're under the supervision of a guardian. And then they receive formal instruction from certified teachers. And also counseling is assigned to that session, as well as nursing. And for your question, Ms. Lee, the special education students go to that program as well.
You said if we had to send 2 students to BOCES, it would be costly. It'd be less to have the REP program in place that would service all students. So to me, it's a little inconsistent. 2 students to BOCES is what, $160,000? That would pay for the RAP room, and it would service many students that go through the RAP room during the year. But, that's why I want to sort of find out how many students that might go to BOCES, because if the board makes that decision to alleviate the RAP room, I want to see how it would affect the district, and it's going to affect many children, not just the 2 that are going to BOCES, but it'll be affecting all the children that could have had the use of the RAP room through the year.
We also, hold on one second, Jack. Just really fast, and Marlene, turn your microphone on. Can we combine the RAP room and the ISS together and save more money that way?
So there's no instruction provided in the ISS. It's really a duty generally. So the teacher watches the students who are there and they get work sent to them from their normal teacher, but there's no instruction.
Well, can you
So-
put that duty somewhere else? Do they have to do that there? Like,
It's just that there's no instruction. So what the RAP room provided, those .2s, because it was part of their workday, they were assigned to instruct the students
I
that were
understand that.
there.
I understand that we have that, and then we have the ISS, which is just a duty period. What
Right.
I'm saying is combine them, and now you're still saving teachers. I mean, you're still cutting some costs, but you're combining them and you're giving them all instruction.
I think we had an ISS. I'd have to look back. It was February last time we had instruction in the building in the normal situation. But so what you're saying is don't have the ISS room, just
Right.
have the
One
RAP
or the other,
program
or-
and have
yeah,
the
I
instruction
mean-
available for everybody that's in there.
Right.
Well, I got a question too about what went on from March to when it was virtual. How many students utilized the program? Because if you have an instructor, right, we have an instructor in the room, or a few instructors. If we go virtual, how many students does this provide, or how many did it provide any sort of teaching and counseling from March until June?
I'd have to get you that information. I don't have.
Can you guys do that?
Sure.
Thanks.
In the alternative high school?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, in addition, when you look at the CSE and you determine whether or not there's a nexus which links the behavior and the disability or the classification, excuse me, then you look progressively at the next step in the least restrictive environment scope. And in our instance, we have the new academy at the high school. So there may be room for select students, and that's still in-house, but it's one step away from the general population, the schoolhouse, as well as having the option of the alternative high school. But those students require certain credentials as a prerequisite before entry. But those are 2 current programs close to the district house that are the next step in the least restrictive environment that may be able to address some of the students that you're referencing, like.
Which program is all three of them? So the profile of the child who's in the alternative high school is not the profile you generally see of the children who would have been in the RAP program. So there's so few children in the alternative high school, I really don't want to talk about what that profile looks like, because I feel like I would be, so I can certainly, yeah, I don't, it's not a marriage that would work, just because the profiles are very different of the kids in the two different programs.
Yeah, when I went to see the program that one day, all the professionals were there, everyone. I mean, we had principals, we had assistant principals, we had staff members, and they spoke so highly of it that it really helped students. You know, I'm going to go with the board majority, but I really believe this is a mistake and costly, and it's going to cost more to the district than you know, unless the kids are perfect this year, but they're high school kids, and everyone has more problems this year, supposedly, from what I'm hearing. We're going to want to hire so many more professionals, and then we want to cut out a room. It just doesn't.
Well,
add up.
Lee, I gotta ask you something. How many kids are in the high school now on a daily basis? 800? Am I right? Linda, is it 800? Okay, because it's half the students with the same amount of staffing.
850.
Actually, there's more staffing. So if there's more staff, smaller class sizes, there's more YFS, there's less students in the building that require YFS, psychologists, and guidance counselors. So now we have the same amount of personnel with half the students. That does help. It does help. And we're adding a YFS, which is an additional person now, more support.
It's
The way
800
I'm
at a
saying it is,
time, right?
if how many children utilize the program from March, when we left March 11th till the end of June, how many children did that program help? I already know the answer. I want to find out the answer. I think that
no one
should
in
tell you
school from March
something.
to June.
If a program is really good, then it should continue, right? Virtual, just like our clubs.
No, that's different because the kids are home.
So then we have staff that we put in a
We have
room.
1,600 kids that
All right,
go
so
to
we
that
have all
high
this
school,
staff
don't we?
that's working in a room, right? All these people that work in the room. If we go virtual, what do they do? The
But
district is
we're
paying
not
people,
virtual.
and what do they do? That's what I'm asking.
We have,
Just stop
Having needs.
when school stopped, when school closed. So what, like, I think Jackie was trying to say is virtually, how come those children weren't still being helped? We're paying them.
we paid everybody. They weren't doing anything. Point.
That's what I'm asking.
Tell you, YFS,
It's still
I
1,600
know
students in
firsthand
that
from
high
my own
school.
children, YFS was calling people's houses. I know from many parents speaking about it. YFS was checking in with their caseload children on a weekly basis.
I know that. But we have 1,600, we still have 1,600 students in that high school right now. Just because they're not consecutive, they're not all there together. There's still 1,600 bodies in that high school
There's only 800
Not at
on a
once.
daily basis.
at once.
So
And
say
plus
there's,
teachers,
say
staff.
we're talking about, that's why I said, let's find out how many for the year. If for the year it's 10%, it's a 5% chance that a kid's gonna be in that room. That's a 5%, then it's 5% of an issue each day. Think about it. If you cut it in half, there's 800 kids in the school. We've been open a couple weeks. There hasn't been any issues. They just said nobody's been in the room. That's correct. Am I correct? So there hasn't been one student in the room.
We've been there
My
for
question
2
is,
weeks.
what do we do?
School
What do the
started
people that are
2
in that
weeks.
room do when the kids are not there? For 2 weeks, there hasn't been a kid in that room. I'm just asking. I'm just asking. What do you do? Do you make like?
They teach our other 4 classes right now, and we didn't have the YFS person in place, so we couldn't actually even put anyone in the room. Not that I think we needed it at this point, because our kids have only been in the building for 8 days at this point, 9 days as of today. But we didn't have the full-time person who was going to man that room. Now you board approved her. So the other teachers were teaching their other 4 classes. Those.
But they get this point, but they're getting paid this point too, as of the first day of
That's
school, correct?
One period.
I'm
they
not
were-
trying to
No,
take
you're
money from
absolutely
anybody's
correct.
pocket. I'm
You're
just
absolutely
saying, if it's not, we keep on talking about we have to cut things. Why would we cut clubs or things that the kids actually need as a requirement when we have all this additional staff now with less children? So the support staff is more for the ratio of children. So wouldn't that be more helpful too? And we're bringing in an additional YFS that could probably come up with another initiative that might be more mental health oriented.
So I'm gonna ask the question again. So I remember roughly, maybe 30, 40 kids were in that program last year. I know there was quite a few that, were back in the room for other reasons, or maybe repeated certain offenses, and then came back into the room. I'm still concerned, even if it's 30, 40 kids, and I hear what Jackie's saying, the likelihood, because now it's half days the kids are going, they're not going, they're going every other day, they're not going, every day, less likely for any child to really get themselves in some sort of trouble. But I do worry about when we go to full-time. I'm always hopeful that maybe February, March, April, we see the day of light and our kids are back every day. I do worry about those kids that are walking around from 7 to 2:15. They're not really getting a lot of guidance. And speaking to you, Lee, I think you got 2 of them confused. There is another program. I think Linda touched on it a little bit, and I do support that one, Lee. So I think it's good, and I would never want to see that one abolished. I fully support that one. I think the other thing too is maybe you might want to explain to the board what Mrs. Berger's role is when she does the ALC, so everybody has an explanation or understanding in how that works. Because that's a 3 to 7 or 3 to 6 p.m. program versus those, the wrap. So Gail, would you mind explaining?
So for the secondary students that are suspended, they, rather than going home and having a home tutor work with them individually, our aim was to reestablish or connect to the schoolhouse as much as
I
possible.
can't hear you.
Okay, thank you. Is this better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I was trying to follow protocol, so I'll keep everyone at distance. So for those secondary students in district that are suspended, the aim was to, rather than have students sit home, as you had said, perhaps sitting home alone in the house or supervised, but not with any direct instruction. We wanted to replicate the schoolhouse and have the students remain as close to the schoolhouse as possible while learning that their behavior was not appropriate. But
But yes,
yes, it would.
separate class, when you say close to the schoolhouse, what does that mean?
So that means the Alternative Learning Center that Mrs. Berger is now the principal affiliated with the BOCES.
At night?
This is in the afternoon. So
After hours?
there are 2 programs, the Alternative High School and the Alternative Learning Center. The high school is where the profile that Dr. Adams was speaking of, that we service our students as well as other district students. They all contract and we've been to graduations together, you and I. The Alternative Learning Center is earlier in the day from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m.
That's Mrs. Berger.
And Mrs. Berger also attends there. There's a nurse and a counselor. And those students are, rather than sitting home unattended, they are transported to the district high school. They enter from a certain location at a certain room. It's very coordinated and scheduled. They receive each day of the week. They receive a different subject area from a certified subject teacher, as well as counseling and nurses on staff. And one of the 4 days, 2 subject areas are taught. So one day it runs until 7 o'clock.
From 3 to 7?
Yes. So it's usually a 3 to 5:30 or 3 to 5, I believe, and one day it's 3 to 7 to include 2 different subject areas. So for all intents and purposes, during that session, Mrs. Berger is the principal overseeing those students and coordinating the staff.
Are there special ed teachers in that group?
There would be at least one. There would be at least one, but we also respond and staff according to the subject area that's needed. So
Is there a YFS person in that group also?
a counselor, doesn't have to be a YFS, but yes, a certified counselor is stationed there as well as a school nurse.
Um,
Okay?
And that would be where they would go.
Yeah, yes. Now that is, so as is the alternative high school that has a certain profile of students that might have not been able to attend such a large setting. That is, if you envision an umbrella,
Well, that's,
well, I'm just saying that's a BOCES program. And then an offshoot of that is the Alternative Learning Center.
that's the 3 to 7.
And that's the
where
3 to
you would
7.
Put those children.
But both programs are BOCES, and of course, they're eatable, but they're servicing our children close to the schoolhouse. And the advantage of having Mrs. Berger is since she is our staff member, we're very fluid in the needs and speaking.
I thought it was, Mr. Costa doing the alternative high school.
I knew there was confusion. So there's actually two alternative high school programs. There's the night alternative high school program, which is a partner with the ALC. Those are both BOCES programs. They are kids in that program from Eastern Suffolk BOCES districts. So there might be a child who is not doing well in East Islip High School. They would contract with BOCES. They might put the child in the alternative high school program that's housed at Connecticut High School. So we can do the same thing. We have some students who, for whatever reason, can't make it through the school day. Maybe they're night owls and can't get up in the morning, and their profile is very specific, and we can send them to a BOCES program, but that is a BOCES program that Mrs. Berger is the principal of.
Okay, but are they getting the same classes that they would get in the high school?
They are.
The same exact thing. So if they have AP calculus or something, they
So, no, it's generally the classes that are necessary for graduation. It's because the alternative high school program at night is.
not the night one, the one talking Mrs. Berger one.
Okay,
who
so
you-
no, Mrs. Berger is the night program. So I think that's where the confusion is. So there's an alternative high school and an alternative learning center, which are partner programs, which are BOCES programs that are housed in Connecticut High School
Right.
at
I
night.
thought we were talking about the alternative learning center, but the one from 3 to 7, whoever runs that one.
Those are both from 3 to 7. The alternative high school, the BOCES alternative high school, and the alternative learning center
Okay.
are night programs.
Do both of those schools have our programs that students will not lose out in? Or is it just the basics, reading, writing, reading, writing?
It's the basic graduation necessities.
Well, what happens if some of these students are very smart? It doesn't mean that they don't have learning disabilities and they can get in trouble. What happens to those students? I mean, I'm just looking at the whole picture, not just throw them in there and graduate them because they can't learn during the day. These kids can learn during the day. They just have some discipline or emotional or whatever problems.
Well,
So just throwing him in another program, that's only going to give him the basics.
Okay, the ALC is a stopgap. It is not a place where people spend a long amount of time. It's generally if a child is on out-of-school suspension for whatever reason, they would go to the ALC rather than not have instruction and not have home tutoring. So it's a stopgap. It's not something you're going to put someone in and say, we'll see in 4 years after you graduate.
No, but put them in there for 10 days. You know what 10 days of education is lost when you're in AP classes or just regular math, good math classes. I mean,
You're
I
correct.
just have a funny feeling what you're getting in those programs is not the same quality as you get during the day.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. But I just wanted to clarify that there are two alternative high school programs. We have our own internal high school program whose profile I'm not going to discuss, which is it's during the school day. It's a small program. It's tailored to a specific profile of child. That's a different profile than what we see at night.
And are the children treated like they are in the rap room, the talking, the education?
It's much more therapeutic setting.
It's
Yes,
a more therapeutic setting?
absolutely.
And they get the same education,
Correct.
the same education they would get during the day?
Yep.
And doesn't cost us a thing?
Well, it costs us the teachers that teach in that program, but it doesn't cost us the BOCES cost.
So what does it cost?
I'd have to look at how many teachers
And
teach
how
in
many
the program.
students can go in a class?
So right now, it's a very small program because it is very tailored to a specific profile. But it's a therapeutic setting. Rather than putting kids in a BOCES therapeutic setting, we want to keep them here at Connecticut High School. So they can, when we get back to sports and clubs and all that kind of good stuff, they can feel like they're full members of the high school program.
And does it support a special ed program?
It's special ed and general ed kids in there.
I'd like to know the cost of that as well, though.
I can give you
If we can
the
get that, please.
staffing of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda,
Right, I know.
so Linda, I do support that program. I do support that program, very much so. I understand that you are, because it's only in its infancy, we're, what, about a year and a half into it right now? Eventually you're looking to grow the program and bring in more kids. And if I remember correctly, it's cost effective because it could run anywhere about $80,000 to $100,000 per student if we were to outsource to BOCES, if I remember that number correctly.
That's actually absolutely correct, because it is a therapeutic setting. And again, I feel like I'm going to do a profile thing, and I really don't want to do that right now.
No.
But
No, I understand the program fully. I understand. Okay, so my other question is, going back to Ms. Berger's program, I have attended her graduations in the last couple of years. She's always gracious enough to invite the board. And I do remember asking her questions, and she is very tailored to whatever those kids' needs are. So the kids do need an AP, calculus, or whatever it is. They do find the proper instruction for those children to have it, so that they can graduate. So I know that I think Ms. Santos, like you mentioned, they do try to tailor it to whatever those children's needs are. I think I'm going to circle back to the same question I've had from the onset of this, is my concern has always been, if we're going to let our kids out, because I know an extended suspension, do they go in Louisa's program or they go somewhere else? If they're on a superintendent in suspension,
they go to the ALC.
which is not run by Louise, it's run by,
No, that's still run by.
that
Mrs.
is run by
Berger.
Louise. Okay, so they're for an extended a lot, she takes care of those students.
Correct.
All right, I'm still worried about the students that are short-term suspensions and, just running around or not being properly supervised. So again, I think I understand that's why, the whole reason why the wrap room was created.
Mhm.
Again, I'm gonna reiterate again, if my memory serves me correctly, there were 30 to 40 students that were kind of in and out of that program. I would like to see if we can have some kind of placement for those kids so that they do get the proper supervision, get the instruction, what they need. Because I do worry 5 days of instruction, especially in today's having an alternate schedule, A and B. I think it's a greater chance for them to even be more behind on their studies, especially if you're not going to have proper supervision.
Well, that's why I said do an initiative. That's actually why I said that I think a YFS initiative, look into what are other options. I'm just saying the program as it sits right now in my opinion, is a failing program. So if it's serviced a lot of kids from March to July,
Oh,
or
no,
to
it
the end of June, it didn't. But if it hasn't serviced anybody for the beginning of school, we have half the students at additional staffing. I'm just saying there are other initiatives that can be put in place than restorative justice. And me and you both heard about a restorative justice, Marlon, that night with that other person, the Andrew Pollard. It's not a program that I support personally.
What's your microphone?
So we're going to get you the folks that would, the .2s that would be excessed and how much the district would save. I know that this data has been given to you in the past, so I'll just have to find it again of how many kids were in the room and were in the program up until March. And I'm pretty sure the data was given to you March to June as well. I think we have to find that as well. So I will get you those three things.
I think I have it at home, Linda. I'll
I
look.
think you do. I'm pretty sure that we've given both of those data points to you before. So we will certainly reiterate that and put it in your FYI.
Okay. Lynn, do you want to move on to the next topic?
Okay, this brings us to our reopening update. Sure. I'm not taking it off. All right, there we go. So I don't know if we can show it on these screens. Okay, give us a second.
There you go.
Okay, this presentation, for those of you who are watching the live stream at home, cannot be seen right now because of the way we had to set up the screens in the school. However, it is on our website, and it is also on the YouTube page, and it's also on our Facebook page if you want to follow along. So keep saying the same thing over and over again. I feel like a broken record. We have, and all New York State education facilities have had to reimagine education, which is a multi-century organization. I mean, Connecticut's been around over 55 years. We had to reimagine every single piece of it. So we know that everything isn't ideal. I don't think we're going to be ideal while we're still within the pandemic and the things that we're dealing with. But I'm really proud of the school district and how hard everyone worked to be as successful for students for the first 9 days as we had. And we've certainly had glitches. So we will be doing reopening plan updates as frequently as necessary. The feedback that we keep getting, I've gotten actually more positive emails from parents in the last 2 weeks about how nervous they were and anxious they were. And after they've seen the kids and the kids come home and they're all excited, they're thanking us for the work that we've done. Their kids feel safe, but we have tweaks to do. So I just want to report and answer some of the questions that have come from the public, as well as some of the things that have happened. Obviously, we had a little bit of a rough start on the first day of school with students. I don't know about you, but I felt like we needed to build an ark. And we were dealing with an unbelievable torrential sideways rain while many of our schools were arriving. And it was a little bit rough, but I think the transportation department and our principals and our security have worked out as much as they can to make it smoother for the arrival of our students and faculty and staff. So I thank all of them. I thank everybody for staying with us, staying patient, and as we move forward, because I think we're doing the best that we can for our Connecticut students, and we want to maintain that and make sure that we continue to do that. So we're going to move forward with community questions. We get a lot of mask questions. So I asked Mrs. Santo to be with us tonight just to reiterate and explain the CDC and DOH guidelines and how those actually, the rubber hits the road here in Connecticut as well as around the state. And I know there are people who are not following the CDC, DOH guidelines as closely as we are, but we want our community to stay safe and healthy. And that's really the first and ultimate goal, everybody's safety and health. So question was, why with 6 foot distancing and barriers must students continually wear masks? So this came out of the American Academy of Pediatrics. A significant number of individuals with COVID-19 have no symptoms and can transmit the virus through respiratory droplets. These droplets are released when coughing, sneezing, loud speaking, or singing. A mask acts as a barrier and can decrease the number of respiratory droplets released into the air. While it's not a perfect barrier, it's one of the best tools we have to prevent the spread of COVID-19 along with social distancing. Why must students wear masks outside? The SED guidance states that masks should be worn when social distancing cannot be maintained. On our playgrounds, our students are encouraged to play together, which often brings them into close contact while they're on our playground equipment. However, if a student wants a mask break at any time when they're outside of the playground, a teacher aide, all our teacher aides have been directed to ensure that kids stay socially distanced, and they can certainly take a mask break. As you all know, central office abuts the Sycamore property. And I have to tell you, I watch those kids every day and they're not pulling on the mask. They're just out playing. And I think they're so much more resilient than we are. I know that a lot of adults have problems wearing the mask all day, and our kids deserve the breaks. And we're going to talk about that a little bit because I know that there have been a number of comments of kids not getting breaks. And we've been much more directive with our language as far as what that should look like. Okay, so we heard multiple times over that first weekend that there were certain buildings that were better at allowing and permitting mask breaks than others. And so Mrs. Santo, who is our COVID maven, a self-appointed title, poor thing. I don't know why she wanted to take that one, but She's worked with our healthcare providers, our nurses, with the CDC. She's got Dr. Gill on speed dial, and we have increased the directiveness of the language in the directive on mask breaks. So, Ms. Santo, would you like to take that one away? Yep.
Thank you. So, and if I may too, I'd like to credit the district nurses, and I'd like to credit the district nurses. We are fortunate enough, thank you to the Board of Education, to have at least one registered nurse at every building. And because of their tenacity and commitment, we know students nurses, just like social workers and support staff, serve the all of the community, not just students. That is their charge, but they're here to support the staff and the faculty, administration, any employee. And they are the front line in adhering to the medical and safety component of the guidelines pursuant to the directive of the New York State Department of Health. The New York State Department of Health supersedes all other agencies and trusts that we adhere to those guidelines. And in the reopening plan that was written by my office or by myself, I took semantics or quotes from that directive so that we were ensured to adhere to the mandates. As Dr. Adams has said, we had expanded upon some requirements, which we are always entitled to offer more provisions or require additional procedures. But what's within our reopening plan and what we're going to outline today, specific to masks and even testing, are the minimum requirements of the New York State Department of Health. So speaking specifically to masks, that is a PPE, a personal protection equipment requirement of all persons in the school community. And because of that, and as everyone I'm sure knows, we've all been listening and reading and watching the news, that the mask is intended to protect the person that you're speaking with or that you're interacting with. Coupled with the 6-foot distance, there are layers of assurances that it's less likely for the virus to transmit. However, with that said, and while we're tenacious about providing, even in every classroom, it's structured that there's 6-foot distancing. On the buses, the runs have been doubled up so that there's 6-foot distancing. The hallways have been organized to be one way, and the dismissal is strategic so that there's fewer passing. Elementary are strategic, so there's concerted effort in all of our systems and our practices to reinforce that social distancing. And with that said, though, every person in the school community, both staff and students, but students in particular, are entitled to and are required to have a mask break. So we met with the administration, and I would also like to credit any of those persons that are listening from the several hours that they committed with Mr. Kohli-Hefar and myself on the Health and Safety Committee over the summer. And we took many of the recommendations from the teachers that were on that committee, parents who are also in the medical field, the nurses, people working in the hospital, and they articulated that they wanted assurances that all parties are safe at all times and adhere to the utmost of the PPE requirements from DOH. That said, people, or our students in particular, and staff alike, are entitled and should have and are directed to provide a mask break. The mask break, as defined in our reopening plan, is no more than 5 to 10 minutes, and dependent on the developmental age of the students and the schoolhouse. Admittedly, there's a big difference developmentally between elementary and middle school, and a huge difference between elementary, middle school, and high school. So there were prerogatives and recommendations given to the staff in each of the buildings in collaboration with health and safety and also with the administration. So we recommended what's listed there. I don't think I'll read everything verbatim that's available. Nope, I knew that, Ms. Panico. But it's available for everyone to review. But basically, the options are, the discretion is provided to the teacher, and it could be either full class, it could be partial class, it could be individual. But the directive and understanding is that it must happen once an hour. So at the elementary house, once an hour, there should be a 5 to 10 minute break. And then the dictate for the secondary periods, it should be once an academic period. Okay? Now, to reinforce that level of assurance, as I had said in the DOH, I'm getting ahead of myself, but it's connected to masks. The minimum requirement for the district is to provide the PPE mask covering, face covering, and then also to ensure that there's 6 foot of distancing. But because we know that mask breaks were going to be afforded our students as well as our staff, the district went one step further and provided additional barriers to provide an extra measure of assurance for all parties involved. And what does that mean? Every student in district was afforded a 3-sided cubby that is at the elementary level stationary on the desk, and at the secondary level, we know that the students transport. In addition to that measure of assurance and border, all teachers have been provided a border to stand in which that they can sit behind. So the premise is if the teacher is taking a mask break or the staff or part of the class, the teacher has the confidence of standing behind a barrier, as well as each child is seated behind a personal barrier.
Yeah,
Is
I'm
it-
going to interrupt you for one moment if you don't
Sure.
mind. We all know what's been provided for the
Okay.
students. Now we've been in school for 2 weeks.
Good.
There's
Okay.
issues with some of these things. That's the problem.
Okay.
So we want to fix those issues. Some of the issues are
Mhm.
the barriers are wavy. They're giving kids headaches. Mask breaks are not happening.
Mhm.
Kids are not able to take their masks off. They're being sent home from the nurse's
Yes.
office with stomach aches and being told to get a COVID test. All of these are the things that that we wanted to address tonight. We
Absolutely.
already know what's happening in the schools.
Okay.
We're all on Facebook. We see.
So I'll
Parents have had
fast
the kids-
forward that, but
Yeah.
once we heard, and Dr. Adams and I collaborate regularly as well as the
I want to know
cabinet.
how we're fixing the problems.
Once we heard that not all persons or parties were affording the mask break, we framed a directive. I sent out a memo district-wide to all building administrators, and it was to be shared with all directives, giving them various options of how to coordinate a mask break. But it was clear from the building administrator to all staff, as well as from my office, that it was not an option, it's an absolute. Okay? And it's still not happening? Okay. And I will ask, my name is, my email address is gsanto@ccsdli.org. If you email me tomorrow, I will follow up personally with the building and see if I can address your concerns. Or I'm in the Pupil Personnel Services Department. Feel free to call me and trust that I will call you back and I will speak to you individually. Excuse me? Okay.
Hearing to.
Okay. So I can admittedly, the other issue that was raised at the elementary level, so if I may bring, there's the one question from this building is why can the teachers not take the students outside? They would prefer an outdoor mask break. Whereas at the elementary level, the district has agreed to allow that because it's safety, it's management, and it's a smaller building, right? So at the secondary level, the feedback that we had in question was why can teachers not navigate the hallways, go outside? Well, if you look at 2 reasons, first and foremost, after collaboration with the secondary principals, it is a management issue, and in that terrible emergency, if we had to call a lockdown or a lockout, and 9 to 10 teachers were outside, it would be a management issue, and I'm sure Dr. Flynn, I was just making him a doctor, Mr. Flynn would shake in reservation in that we be prepared to respond in a prompt manner. So it was just.
So Gail, I just want to touch on that. So we also would have an issue if you're letting 7 or 8 kids out in each classroom getting a mask break.
So what's important,
That's
Madam?
also another worrisome
Okay.
area.
So I will revisit with the administration. So the baseline is when a mask break takes place, 6 foot distancing should be enforced. The student should be seated and the teacher would hopefully be in the front of the room, preferably behind the border or not. So no students are to be sent in the hallway. First of all, they're unsupervised. Secondly, there's transmission. You're supposed to have assured, that's why every directive, if you read this PowerPoint, please, when you do, you'll see that the verbiage said, when you provide a mask break, ensure that the children are seated and 6 foot distancing and social distancing is maintained. We provided the second measures for those questions of saying, well, what about my health? I don't feel secure. So we did more than the New York State Department of Health requires. But at no time should children be unsupervised. At no time should children be asked to leave the room. And they should be seated so there's definitive confidence that 6-foot distancing is being maintained. The other implication is what is not being thought of. Should there be, and I'm hoping the operative word is not yet, because we've been very fortunate. We've had no positive findings. And we're reporting to the Department of Health every day from 12 p.m. to 12 p.m. We're recording any referrals to the healthcare providers, any COVID tests, any positive results, and those that are quarantines for symptoms. And there are as many as 16 districts, I think, Dr. Adams, that have had positive tests and have already closed part of their district or full building in preparation. Because of the tenaciousness and the commitment of, again, I will say, I'm very proud of, we're fortunate to have a very talented nursing staff, that they're committed to protect all. We have a conservative and comprehensive reopening plan, but as Dr. Adams said, no plan is perfect. We have to make sure all are abiding and all are upholding. And
Gail, can I just ask you something?
yes.
Since you hit on that, I was gonna hit on the mask breaks for the, this is loud. The mask breaks for the high school as well, because that's been all over. Everybody's been complaining about that. We sent the emails to you guys, but there's another issue, and that would be at the elementary schools. And that was with the nurses, and that is that some of the buildings have new nurses, because we had nurses that retired. So they don't know the children in the building. As an old, like a nurse that's been there for years, and your children, maybe if your child's in 3rd grade, they know your child. They know your child's a frequent flyer. They know they're coming down to the nurse because they have anxiety. They have a bellyache. This is what this child has done for years upon years. Well, now the issue is there are children who they have a bellyache. They sneeze, they cough. Now the issue is that they're being sent home for a COVID test. Now I go and I speak to a pediatrician who says to me, Jackie, you can't send a child for a COVID test. We give them a rapid COVID test and they come to us and say, you don't need one. You don't need one. I'll give you a doctor's note to go back. There's no antigens. There's nothing. Now we send you for this test. Some parents are going to can't even get the pediatrician to do it. So they're going to PM Pediatrics spending $200 because maybe insurance doesn't cover. And then they're being told, send the kid back to school. They get the letter because it's not, it's negative. And the next thing you know, 2 days later, the kid's saying, I have a stomach ache again. And now is that kid getting sent home for another COVID test? Because that was something that I actually asked the nurse, and they can nearly answer me. And I said, that's an issue. That's an issue because I don't want to see kids have more mental health issues, especially in the elementary schools. That test is very intrusive. That test is not something that especially our special ed kids or our children that are on the cusp, that's going to be a very hard test to be given to some children. I mean, Mylene called me up the other night and said, Jackie, if your son has to get that test, they're going to have to sedate him. So I'm saying, I feel for the parents that if you have to take your kid for a COVID test, it needs to be because they actually have these main.
Well, if I may, I hear you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there are new nurses. But
That's what I'm saying. So they don't really, and I that's why I
they
respect
may
that.
not know the children, but we are adhering to the mandates of the New York State Department of Health. And in 2 slides, if I could just get there, I can speak to the requirements of the testing and what is precipitating our response and what are the absolutes, and there are no deviations. And
Gail, I can tell you that we are sending kids for COVID tests that went to the nurse for a bellyache.
yes, but that's exactly right, because it's one of the symptoms, and I can list the symptoms. But
One
the
symptom doesn't mean
reason,
they have COVID.
no, but you see,
I have a sore
but
throat.
see, Miss
My voice
Eileen,
is shot. My
but-
nose is
but what
running.
we
That's
need-
allergies.
you're right, but there's 2, let me respond. So let's pretend I'm the principal, you come to me, you're the parent, and you're the student presents as you're speaking of right now. So you're talking about a pre-existing condition. And I think that's even what Miss Jackie is saying, that if a new nurse may not know the history, but because we're in a global pandemic, there are absolutes And the only thing we can respond to are the scripts that are on file, but at minimum, we must adhere to the mandates. And there are as many as 12, I will read them when I get to that slide, of the symptoms. And the directive from the Department of Health says any person presenting with one, it could be fatigue, with a headache. And I will go so far as to say, you are correct. I've had 3 physicians call me and argue the stance of the district. But Dr. Gill is our school physician. He supports our document. But I've called New York State Department of Health as recently as 3 o'clock, 11 o'clock today to have the reinforcement. And then I can show you the verbiage where I took it from the document. It's not an option. So the situation, let's say you have allergies that have yet to be diagnosed, okay? But you're presenting, you don't feel well, your head is all congested. And let me remind you, ladies and gentlemen, you could be transmitting or carrying COVID and be totally asymptomatic. So the rationale is because it's a global pandemic and we're 2 steps away from the pulse, we're living it every day. But we're not quarantined as we were in March. We're not fearful. Thankfully, the incidents are not as frequent as they were. We've been less than 1%, I think, statewide, 1.5%, don't quote me, for almost 2 months. So those are all reassurances we're going in the right direction. But it's because now they know how to identify COVID. They know the absolutes. So they list those 12 symptoms. And if you present with any, then this assurance is send that student to the doctor. And the 3 physicians that called my office all obliged after I spoke with them because I quoted the Department of Health. And what I said, if you were a child with a pre-existing condition, then bring that child back with the doctor's script. And in the future, if the student were to present again, there's an allowance to link it with the discretion of the licensed registered nurse to an existing condition, but only if it's on file. So it's the absolutes. Okay, so I can get to where parents can have, but parents, I do know. But the other thing is, ladies and gentlemen, how many people do we employ? Mr. Kolahifar, I think it's around, because I do the GCN training, and we send out almost 1,300 memos to every staff member. We have people working in district, both staff and faculty alike, that may be personally compromised. I can't disclose, but they may be more susceptible, more at risk. So we're protecting everyone. And what our teachers are telling our nurses, I know it's tough, but I feel so confident that you're being as strict as you are. And we're not asking, we're asking the minimum of what the Department of Health requires. We're providing more assurances and more protections and trying to be succinct in our coordination. Now we have to ensure that everyone adheres and that there is no parent saying my child is coming home saying I didn't get a mask break. More so, I will even add, we've heard instances that, and without judgment, we understand people sometimes respond in fear, but if a student has a water bottle, they should be permitted to sip. Okay, it takes 2 seconds. No, exactly. So look,
No, but what I'm saying is if a doctor gave, like for instance, if there's a doctor note that's sent in, they are saying that, and that's okay. Because like if we even said that, be proactive. And I actually did that for my own child. Be proactive, send in that they have their asthma or their allergies, because these have very similar looking symptoms. I'm trying to think of the word, symptoms. And I understand that. But the biggest problem I have is if a child is a child who just misses mommy and daddy and wants to go home, because you see that a lot, and now says, I have a bellyache, or or like here for the first week of school, I heard children were vomiting because you get these little young kids that you're pulling away from mom and dad who haven't been home since March, or kids this is their first year in school. We're sending them for a COVID test, really? To me, that is absolutely absurd. Because I don't understand how it could actually be like if it's a guideline, then that's just a guideline, but an absolute because I know other districts that what they said to me is they're sending them to a pediatrician who has to then determine if they need a COVID test or if they need to be sent back to school without the COVID test.
So-
We're saying and I'm not saying all schools. I'm
Yes.
saying I know of one in
Mhm.
particular
Mhm.
that I actually spoke to Dr. Adams recently about,
Yes.
that it's, and I understand it, like I said, that's just sending the children, and it was
Right.
all over social media,
Right.
that school was sending
Okay.
the children home and
Right.
saying, nope, can't come back until you get a COVID test. Sorry, it's
Right.
protocol.
It again, it's to protect the greater good. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, when you get to the slide, you'll see the number, the 888 number. It's toll free. I invite all of you to call the New York State Department of Health. They supersede the local Department of Health. The local Department of Health, all right, we're only as good as the information that's given to us, and people can make mistakes. But the districts, the neighboring districts that are not requiring a COVID positive test for students to return once they present with symptoms are incorrect and not adhering. And we don't want to be responsible. We don't want to subject our staff or our faculty or families or our community at large to exposure. And I understand there's going to be some anomalies. Some parents may not have a script on file. But similarly, ladies and gentlemen, I've been a teacher, for several decades in the education field. And I know because of strife, because of family requirements, sometimes children are sent to school not at 100%. They might have a symptom. Okay, that symptom can no longer be trusted. That symptom, you could be asymptomatic and carry the virus. We cannot make allowances for any of the symptoms. It's disallowed through DOH, but the logic behind it is it may be the likely virus and it would go rampant. So we're conservative, but I think credit to our diligence and our attention and our adherence to what the Department of Health is mandating. It's not a request, it's a mandate. So if you call that number that you'll see and you ask, is the district right in requiring if my child presents with a symptom, even one, must I have a COVID test and must it be negative to return? And I will eat 3 shoes. No one will say no because I just called them again today at 3:00. And I knew the answer, but there's a lot of pushback and I wanted to have that information ready for you. I've also was able to find out a toll-free number that people could have free screenings. But to answer some of, and that we'll get to that, but to answer some of the questions here, once history is established, and once there's a doctor's note on record, then there could be a pre-existing. But there's no equivocation if it's 1 of 12 or 4 of 12. If there's a symptom, the nurses are doing the right thing, and we are required to send the student home, more so immediately refer the student to the isolation room, so they're removed from the general population, so no one is prematurely exposed, send them home, and have them return with a negative COVID test before their quarantine is over. Okay? It is more complicated if we have a positive result, and then you'll be hearing from my office, you'll be hearing from the Department of Health, and then we would also have to report all persons that person came into contact with. And that's why we don't want a positive test, because the implications of quarantining would be huge. Because it wouldn't just be one student, it would be any person. That person was potentially put at risk of exposure. That means an entire class. At the secondary level, it's several classes and several teachers. So the implications are broad. Trust that with our conservative position, but our ultimate astute adherence to what's required, we're protecting the greater good. I know it's uncomfortable. My job is to make sure that everyone adheres, so all students are afforded the break that they're entitled to, because there's enough difference in the day-to-day atmosphere that we don't want to add any more strife. And please call me directly and I will speak to administration. And I do have a meeting with them this Thursday morning to go over signs and symptoms, and this will be part of the topics. Okay, I'm sorry, but I think we answered.
Next slide. These were just questions that were asked. Why weren't boxes of reusable masks distributed to teachers? All teachers were given at least 5 masks. because everyone who enters the building must be wearing a mask. So these were just kind of like emergency masks. We give a Stop the Bleed kit out to every teacher. It's gloves, bandages, Band-Aids. And in that kit, we also included masks. On the elementary level, they included pediatric size masks as well as adult size masks, just in case a child's mask broke. It was, again, a stopgap kind of measure. So there's no need to give an entire box. We gave 3 to 5, depending on the building, and the size of the child that is in front of that teacher. And if they run out, there's more in the building. They just need to call down to the main office or the nurse's office, depending on where their principal is keeping the backup supply. Board of Education asked, what is the ETA on reusable masks? We think potentially this Friday, the reusable masks will be in. There are people who are talking about the QR codes, that some parents aren't filling out the QR codes. So the SED guidance on the QR code is very specific, that we have to have multiple avenues of completion. They must be available and cannot be used as a basis to exclude a child from school. So SED further states that screening of students includes a daily temperature check and periodic completion of the questionnaire. And since we have the safeguard of all students being temperature checked, which you folks were scanned as you came in, it's a secondary piece to the QR code, but we also have people who fill it out on paper, and the follow-up by the buildings has begun in earnest. Mrs. Santo just spoke about this, New York State Department of Health, the COVID symptoms. There's a big difference between a parent keeping a child home for a stomach ache and us sending a child home for that same stomach ache. It is actually on page 3 of the Department of Health, New York State Department of Health guidelines. This is a mandate. This is not something that we are choosing to do as an over and above, but it is a mandate. So if there's school systems that are not sending kids home and mandating a negative COVID test, they're not actually following the New York State Department of Health guidelines. However, I'm going to just reiterate that if your child has a pre-existing condition, it would behoove you to get that on record with your nurse's office, so that if a child is coming in with allergies, with those itchy eyes that we're all getting, and that are starting now, let your nurses know that your child has that as a pre-existing condition. The next slide, I think I'm 2 behind. Am I at the right one now? Yes, okay. So these were the free COVID-19 screening and diagnostic. You call the New York State Department of Health and they will set you up with a test. I know we had heard that some places were charging a copay and an exorbitant fee, but the New York State Department of Health is providing those for free if you call their hotline.
In Suffolk County, New York State is trying to provide free testing in various counties and zones. For our location, Stony Brook Hospital has a drive-through. So what you have to do is call that 888 number and they'll register, give you an appointment, and it would be free of charge. If you want, you can access via the internet and start your enrollment via typing, but you'd still have to call to schedule an appointment. But that is local, available to all parents, regardless of how many times you go, and it's free of charge.
Next slide. Is this the same slide? This is not the, okay, so this is not the right presentation, but all right, we have the answer to these. No, but we do have the answer to the barriers. So you can see on these desks down here that there are 3 clips that the students actually pop in the secondary level. They pop in and out of the 3 clips. They do have slightly sharp edges, but Ms. Villarreal worked hard this weekend to get the company to come out, and they are going to shave off all the edges of the sharp clips. They're starting tomorrow, correct? Starting tomorrow. There was a concern, this is 2 weekends ago, so a lot of these questions have already been answered and taken care of. There was a concern at the airflow in the libraries at Sycamore and Duffield, so air conditioning units were installed on Monday, September 14th. Students without a device? Mr. Middleman?
Sure. So we have, we made a decision at the beginning of the summer not to collect the devices that we had originally given to our families who expressed need. In hindsight, we probably should have collected them. So we are in the process of collecting our elementary students' Chromebooks that we distributed last spring to for non-virtual students to provide for our virtual students, and then our hybrid 6 through 12 students. So we're in the process of doing that.
Why can't kids use lockers? They can, at all three secondary campuses. It just needs to be requested, but just know that they will not be sanitized. So we just don't have the manpower to go and sanitize all of the handles and the locks. So if a parent would like to request the use of a lock and a locker, they certainly do that by just emailing their principal or AP. Okay, Mr. Middleman, you're up.
So, should turn it on. So we've had some questions about teachers requesting students to bring their own personal devices until the time that Chromebooks have arrived. So we, as a district, cannot require parents to purchase such devices, similar to calculators, which we would provide for our students. So over the past few years, the district has encouraged and allowed a BYOD environment, which is bring your own device, especially at the high school. This past summer, the district presented a plan using the Smart School funding to purchase devices for all students and teachers. Currently, the order for students in grades 6 through 12 has not arrived, and our Smart Schools application, which is still in New York State Ed, has yet to be reviewed. In the meantime, again, as I mentioned earlier, we will be collecting the Chromebooks from our elementary students that we distributed in spring and redistributed to those students who need them currently. We had a question about specials. At the secondary level, specials are part of a child's schedule, and the staff is conducting their classes to the best of their ability in the same manner for virtual and in-person students. Teachers have been given the authority to modify activities or projects for safety or equipment reasons. For virtual elementary students, the district hired teachers to provide physical education, art, and music, and it is part of the child's elementary class schedule for the week. Another question regarding school events like book fairs and picture day. You know, at this time, there are no school events. And as you know, we've mentioned to the board several times and to the public, we'll continue to reevaluate those on a biweekly and monthly basis to see if we need to add things as we go forward. And again, it's based on guidance from the New York State Department of Health, New York State Department of Education, and the Suffolk County Department of Health. Schools are currently creating plans for Picture Day. Many of you have already been contacted, and these picture days will be held outdoors, and we are including our virtual students in those as well, full virtual students. So we had questions about interacting with students at home, requesting cameras to be off and cameras to be on. You know, just a reminder that students have only been in school for about 9 days. And this method of instruction is new for our teachers, it's new for our students, it's new for our families. Our teachers are gaining a comfort level with the technology, with this method of instruction, and the changes of how school is organized since last year. The district is continuing to encourage our teachers to interact with their virtual students. If parents have specific concerns about their child's instruction, I'm urging you to reach out to either the department chairperson or director or to the building administration or building principal. How is attendance being done virtually? So one of the things is, you know, I meet weekly with other assistant superintendents, and some of the challenges that we're facing here at Connecticut are being faced in every district across Long Island. Attendance is one of them. And what virtual attendance is, what virtual present means, and all those different things. So we are consistently looking for guidance from our attorneys. But attendance is recorded each period or session by the classroom teacher, and it's recorded into our student management system, eSchool. The district is evaluating and modifying attendance practices for our virtual students at the secondary level. Once that's complete, an update will be provided to the teachers from the building administration. Question about engagement, and I would love to say that engagement is fantastic and it's going amazingly well, but it is challenging, and I think that it varies depending on the course and the level. But we are committed to work with our staff and work with our families to raise that engagement level and to continue to provide those practices that allow students to be as interactive as possible in the virtual setting. How is physical education class virtual? So the staff, again, is conducting their classes to the best of their ability in the same manner for virtual and in-person students. Again, they've been given the authority to modify the activities and projects for safety reasons. For virtual students, we have hired a teacher for our art, music, and physical education at the elementary level, and it is part of their schedule. If you have any questions or concerns about anything that's going on, the best place to call is Mr. Pete Malore. He's our Director of Athletics. He will get back to you immediately, and he will work with you to solve the problems or challenges that you are facing with your child's instruction. Chromebooks, are they able to log in? Who's in charge of attendance? So very similar questions. Again, as I spoke earlier, our Smart Schools application has yet to be reviewed by New York State. Once it is reviewed and finalized, we will be placing that purchase for our students in kindergarten through grade 5. We did go ahead and purchase ones for students in grade 6 through 12. We anticipate them to come in at the end of October. We are speaking with our vendor every week to get an update. But us, like many other districts, are in the same predicament, waiting for those devices to come in. Virtual students can log into classes with any device that connects to Wi-Fi, and we understand some of the challenges with connecting by phone versus connecting by a computer at home. And hopefully, with the collection and redistribution of Chromebooks, some of those challenges will be solved. Again, we're working on our attendance practices, and there'll be more updates to come. We had a question, part of this, about materials. The elementary students picked up their materials this past Saturday. For secondary students, their pickup has been coordinated through the building principals and the guidance departments, and has been ongoing at each of the 3 secondary campuses. So the next question deals with students who are cohorted together and the number of periods that they sit together, and then when they change, if there is a different attendance practice or a requirement that the teacher has with regards to how the students are sitting versus alphabetical or a different order. I have shared this information with the secondary principals, and they are looking into it to see if they could resolve some of those challenges. Kids with no lunch, given a study hall, they were told to wait for virtual students to come out to get scheduled, and students were removed 4 days before the start of school. For this school year, and this is unique to the high school only, for this school year, students are able to eat in their study hall periods. Those study halls are generally scheduled in either the auditorium, which is this location, or the LGI. During periods 4, 5, and 6, the building administration has allowed students to use this auditorium as a space where they can eat.
Wait, can I just stop you for a minute? Just 1 minute. That's another one of the issues that we were hearing, that kids were not getting lunch. I wrote it down. That they weren't getting lunch periods. They were actually going all day without eating. They were told to eat in the hallway if they wanted to eat something. That was on high school level, my understanding. And they were told, they had a couple of different things written down. And they were also told that they couldn't bring the food with them if they wanted. And if they did, they could only eat it outside or in the hallway. No one, that they didn't have any, and study hall, that was the one. Study hall, they originally were told they could eat there. Well, that's what we said for reopening. And then when they actually went to study hall, they were actually told they are not allowed to eat there.
So the study hall has been rectified. I spoke with Mr. Moran prior to the meeting, and he has addressed that issue.
Perfect, thank you.
Many of our students do select the option of not having a lunch period because they want to maximize the amount of courses that they can take, generally for their, to boost their college transcript. So for those students, historically, they've been able to eat in classes. And that's been on a case-by-case basis. That will continue for this year. If a child is having difficulty, or if there's challenges in finding a location or a time for them to eat, I urge the parents to reach out to Mr. Moran, and he will rectify that situation and find that period.
Can we have, I'm just throwing this out there. Can we have guidance counselors that look into the kids' schedules? And if they have a child or a student that has a study hall instead of lunch, or doesn't have a lunch period at all, which I have to tell you, I'm not a fan of that at all. I think every child should have a lunch period. I'm sorry. I know that they like taking, some kids like to take as much as possible. I know some people like chorus, the music and all that, and I think that's great. But I think that nutrition gets you through the day, and if you don't eat something, like I'm over here eating a snack, because if you don't eat something in a long period of time, I do not think it helps you learn. I think that when you get hungry, sometimes you get a little bit, dizzy, and if that's happening too with some of the kids, that's an issue, and they're not drinking enough water. So I would just ask, is it something that they can do? Can guidance look into which children, of their caseload don't have lunches, and see if they could reach out to them, even have them come down and ask those kids, hey, is there something I can do to help you? Or is there something that, because we're asking parents to reach out, and I understand that, but there are those children that are just not going to complain. They don't want to make waves. Sometimes we have to reach out to them and say, hey, listen, this is what we're going to give you, some options, because we want every child to eat. Especially right now, while lunch is a grant and it's free, which great job. It would be a nice thing to make sure that the kids are getting nutrients, especially right now.
Definitely. I'll take care of that. So a question came up regarding orchestra and instruments and some of the past practices that our district has had with regards to that. Historically, the district has supplied an instrument for in-school use and has asked parents to rent an instrument such as a bass for students to keep at home. And generally, these are for the larger instruments that students have a difficulty bringing back and forth, either in a car or on a bus. This year, the district is providing both instruments for parents. And if there is a challenge with that, again, I urge you to contact Mr. Rockman, our interim director of Fine and Performing Arts. So what is the 4th and 5th grade split model? Explain the pros and cons. So this is one of the areas that we're continuing to look at and continuing to try to make improvements. The intent of in our reopening plan was to have all of our elementary students attend school daily in a socially distant classroom. This was accomplished by reducing the class size in all K-5 classrooms. But due to space and fiscal constraints, as well as the layout of each of the elementary schools, the 4th and 5th grade sections were split between a teacher and a teacher assistant for parts of the day. Over the first 9 days of school, the building principals have identified the challenges within the model, and we're working together to find solutions for these. And several schools have begun to pilot such alternatives as broadcasting from their classrooms into the other classrooms. So I'll continue to update the board and the public as we work on making this 4th and 5th grade experience as positive as possible. Why aren't teachers contacted as they were in past years by mail to let them know what the first few days of school were? So most building principals did send home an opening day packet to their teachers. However, the plan for superintendent conference days, which we had 2 additional ones this year, as well as teacher orientation day, was sent home by me electronically on September 1st, which is a day prior to their report date. Again, this is usually sent home to staff much earlier via mail by each building. But this year's program included significantly more professional development offerings over 2 additional days, which we wanted to make sure that we had it all perfect by the time staff came in. Have teachers been able to collaborate with one another to provide the best possible outcome for children? In anticipation of the planning and preparation needed for this school year, the district offered each teacher 2 paid hours of curriculum writing that they could use to collaborate with colleagues prior to the start of the school on September 2nd. And thanks to the Board of Education for approving that. In addition, time was built into each of the superintendent's conference days and teacher orientation days for staff to meet either as a grade level or by department. Have family and consumer science teachers been instructed as to how they could teach their classes? Are they allowed to cook? Yes, they have by Dr. Losing, who is the chairperson for that department. At the high school, students are allowed to cook. Students will be as socially distant as possible, with different students doing different parts of the recipe, and those not actively cooking, working on something else at their desks. For middle school students, the teachers can demonstrate a cooking lesson in their classes as they push in, if they choose. And we will periodically review this in the hopes that as the infection rate remains low, we're able to bring more students out of the cohorts and back into the family and consumer science classrooms for more hands-on activities each week. Teachers are working with their life skill students in their classroom with cooking facilities, and they can cook with those students. So do teachers have information on students they need as if this was a normal school year, such as reading levels and math levels? Well, due to the closure last year and the state assessments being canceled, elementary teachers were unable to benchmark their students in reading or create and finalize the students' literacy portfolio, which encapsulates a lot of that information. Other benchmarks were also incomplete as well. So for this school year, during the month of September, the teachers will be using the Fontes-Pinnell level, benchmarking levels to benchmark the students in reading. And in October, we'll use an online adaptive assessment to benchmark our students in all literacy and mathematics skills. Dr. Adams spoke about the lockers. So will there be a virtual open house? Yes, we have back to school night. So virtual back to school nights will take place as follows. Idle Hours had theirs last night. Sycamore Avenue Elementary School will have it on September 29th. Duffield and Slocum will have it on October 5th. Cherokee, Boston, and Pearl will have it on October 6th. OBMS and RMS will have it on October 7th, and Connectwell High School will be on October 8th. Each of the building principals will send out specific information regarding those events.
Yeah, can I ask one quick question? Did they start health in ninth grade this year?
Yes.
Okay. So,
Can you hear me now? Nice, okay. So we had a little bit of a debacle with the SAT, as you may all well be aware. We originally were looking at not being an SAT site for a variety of reasons, not the least of which was the sanitization and the decreasing of the ability of other folks to be in the buildings. The community was upset by that. So we have been working to reopen Connecticut High School as an SAT and ACT site. We have gotten information and misinformation from SAT. So the biggest issue is we were told on Friday by the College Board that we would be able to reschedule the September 26th to a later date in October. The original date they gave us was October 10th. However, neither one of the people that we spoke to on Friday were the New York State representatives of the College Board because they were both on vacation. And we have now not been able to get a firm date that we can even reschedule the September 26th date. So it's very frustrating because we were told one thing on Friday, and I was happy to let the community know what they told us on Friday, and now we cannot get a firm commitment for the October 3rd test as well. So Mr. Kolahifar has been working with the test coordinator to try to get these dates firmed up. At this point, we have no firm commitment from the College Board for neither the October 3rd test nor the rescheduling of the October 26th test. I think you've spent about 20 hours listening to their music as they were trying they were waiting to have their phone call answered. They told us to email them. We've emailed them repeatedly and cannot get firm dates on this. We are hoping that they will honor what they told us on Friday. So as soon as we have that information and the commitment, we will get that out to all of our high school families. PSAT is also the College Board. They gave us other pieces of information. They've now given us 2 potential dates for the SAT, the PSAT. We're looking potentially to schedule that in January for our juniors and our sophomores who would be eligible to take that. We will have more information as soon as we can get a firm date and a commitment from them as well. Driver's education, we've already given an update on. Okay, so there's no answers on there. So, okay. Yeah, all right. So for some reason, the presentation that's up there is not the presentation we have in front of us, but we will give you the answers to the questions that are up there, and we'll put the right one up on our website. So this is Ms. Villarreal, who's going to fill you in on transportation.
So the first day of school was obviously a poor example of anything. No one asked for a tsunami, but we got a tsunami. So thank you for your patience. But everyone arrived safely. I know Cherokee was a bit delayed, but we've since worked out those kinks. I was there the other day. All cars and buses were gone by 2:45. So every day we're improving. So I appreciate all of your patience as we work through things every day. So everything starts at the high school and ends at the high school. So as students are getting used to memorizing bus route numbers and where their bus is located, this continues to improve dismissal at the high school. So once everyone's loaded onto the buses at the high school, the buses then begin their departure to both the middle schools. At the high school, we expanded the walkway to allow students to get to their buses promptly and to not step into puddles and puddles of water. Buses, again, at the middle schools continue to improve. Seats are limited to 1 student per seat unless students are living in the same household. There's signage in all of the buses, so as you enter the bus, right on the steps, it says you must wear a mask at all times. As we discussed before, each bus is given additional masks for any students that forget. But for the most part, students are wearing their own masks from home with creative logos and colors and patterns that match their outfits, which I try to do on a daily basis. Sometimes I mix and match prints, but that's just me. A parent reminder, so ridership has been low. I know the weather didn't help on the first day, but we do encourage you to put your children on the bus. This will definitely lower significantly the traffic at the high school, the traffic at Cherokee. That's it for transportation. The next slide is for food service. And I'm just going to assume that this slide is different, so that's fine. Okay. So the Meal Planner app is through the FD Meal Planner system. It is a completely different system than in years prior. It used to be just the menu service where parents could view nutrition information and meal information. It is now where we all go to place orders every single day. So the app was not working initially. Unfortunately, it was one of those things that technology just couldn't catch up with the demand of all the users. It's now working, finally restored on both Apple and Android devices. So I have some meal planner updates from the company themselves. September 25th, parents will be able to enter for a meal period for multiple days for the same student in one screen, instead of going, checking in and checking out your items, then going on to the next student, so on and so forth. October 9th, the student name will be pre-populated. So instead of the parent name, it'll be the student's name. And they're going to remove the additional options for an entree because the district can only provide 1 entree per student. So a few things that are happening. All orders must be placed in your child's name. So if your name is Jane Doe and your child's name is Janet Doe, you should be putting in Janet, not Jane. Originally we had said that we would keep the website open for orders through 5 o'clock the night before. This is just to give our food service staff some more time to be able to prepare the orders, but we've extended it so it closes now at 10 o'clock at night to give parents that are working additional time. But again, every single week, the FD Meal Planner system and company are making significant improvements to the website and to the web-based application as well. Any gluten-free orders should be emailed to Christine Miller. Her email is cmiller, MILLER, @ccsdli.org. At the high school, her extension is 1033. If you are a virtual student and you are unable to get to the building where you're located for pickup of meals between 11 to 12, there are accommodations that could be made. Again, contact Christine Miller, and she will be able to assist you there. For your orders, the orders in any building consist of 1 milk, 1 juice, 2 sides, and 1 entree. And entrees are hot and cold options. As far as issues we're experiencing, so some parents are putting in an order. They're stating that the meal should be picked up outside, but the student is actually in class that day. Some parents have contacted me to say, oh, I did this by accident and I don't think my child got to eat today, but that's not the case. Food service has provided additional meals on hand for any students that either didn't have a parent to be able to go in online and place an order, or something in that situation occurred instead. In both middle schools, the parent is putting down the student's homeroom and not the room that they have lunch in. These are things that will continue to be worked through. So this is an interesting example. I had someone put in Peter Cheeseburger as an order, I guess to try and bypass the system. So we looked up a child's name as Peter Cheeseburger, and there is no Peter Cheeseburger in the district. So we quickly realized Peter wants a cheeseburger, not deliver to Peter Cheeseburger. So the parent is also only partially ordering on occasion. They put the meal items in their cart, but then they do not check out, so the order is actually not finished, which is a prime example of why we're having additional meal items ready to go, just in case this happens. So as you are in either the app or on the web-based application from your desktop or phone, you add all the items to your cart, but you have to make sure you hit checkout, otherwise food service will not receive your order.
Bridget, can I ask you a question fast? What do we do with the parents that, like myself, shush, Mark. What do you do with parents like myself whose child goes to one of the middle schools and I accidentally put it in for the high school? So then I had to redo it. I said, is there any way to cancel it? Because I tried everything and there was no way to cancel it. And then I saw other parents have the same issue.
Yeah.
If you put the wrong school, if you put in 2 meals instead of 1, like, or you didn't think the email went through, and then the next one did, and then all of a sudden two came up on your phone. Is there a time that it stops? Because originally it was 5 p.m., but I know that a lot of us have still done it until like 10 p.m., and the kids still got the food the next day. Is there like a drop dead cutoff?
Are you my Peter Cheeseburger example?
I possibly can be. I actually called the high school the other day and apologized to the lunch people to tell them, you're going to have my kid's name, but that's a middle schooler. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't a turkey. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a turkey sandwich sitting lonely by itself to give it to someone else.
So you can always go straight to your building and let them know, either I've made this mistake, you can go straight to Christine Miller. I'll send you that email if you want as well.
There was a way that once you put something through, is there a way to use the technology to close it without having to bother anybody?
There's not currently that update, but that would be ideal for that to exist. I will certainly let FD Meal Planner know that. I just would not recommend putting in a second order, otherwise Peter Cheeseburger is getting 2 cheeseburgers.
I gotcha.
And 10 o'clock, but yeah, I'm sure it stays open much later than that. And that's all I got for food service.
All right. So one of the things that Suffolk County superintendents do is they get together once a month. Now we're doing it virtually. And sometimes we have a keynote speaker, especially to kick off the school year. And in this school year, we had a motivational speaker come in and speak to us virtually. And the gentleman who spoke to us, his name is John Gordon. He's an author. He grew up on Long Island. He actually was a Smithtown student, graduated from one of the Smithtown high schools. And he talked about human nature. And I just thought that this was really one of those times where we could all just do a little bit of self-reflection and thinking. And the one thing he said right now is we're living in a world where there is such heightened anxiety, that there is such fear, and the level of stress that we are all encountering is just out of control. And the 5 Ds, which is part of his one of the latest books that he was talking about, he felt really just exacerbated the stress, the fear, and the anxiety that we were feeling as a community. So I thought that I would share it because it was one of the things that, as I walked away from the presentation, I was excited to be able to share this with you, because I think we as a society go down the rabbit hole very easily, and pulling ourselves back up is hard, especially where we're living right now, in the world that we're living in right now. It's really human nature that no one gets up every morning and goes, I'm going to do a bad job tonight. Nobody says that. Nobody wakes up and says, I'm going to be mediocre. I'm going to strive to be middle of the road. And so I think what we need to do is get rid of these 5 Ds. And the first D is doubt. I have true faith in humanity. I have faith that our kids are going to flourish, that they're resilient, that when we say as an adult, you're going to have a great day today, we help to predict that they will have a great day today. I also have faith that our teachers will provide the best instruction they can in this new reality. I do. I think there are people who are more frightened of it than others. I think that there are people who take to it more like ducks to water than others. But I do believe that none of our teachers come in every day and say, I'm going to do a bad job today. I don't believe it. I believe that people are going to rise to this challenge. I ask you to help eliminate some of that doubt for your kids. Distortion. Anywhere you look in the news right now, people take something that's small and make it into something that it isn't. If it's one thing that's happening to one person, it's distorted to be happening to the masses. There are things that are happening that are not great, and we need you to help us fix those. But look for the facts, let's find the patterns, and let's make them better for our kids. Let's not go for the distortion that makes something bigger than it is. We are going to do the best that we can in this new reality because I have faith that that's why we all became educators and that's why we're here. That's why those 5 folks give up their time and volunteer hundreds of hours a week behind the scenes and in front of you to do good work for our kids. So let's work together to get rid of those 2 Ds. Division. Unfortunately, we're living in the reality right now that there's us versus them. I have to tell you, in Connecticut, there is no us versus them. We're here for the kids. It's our mission to make sure that our kids have a well-rounded education and that they are successful in a safe and nurturing environment. So anyone who's playing that it's an us versus them is not looking out for our children. And that's unacceptable. And I'm going to have faith and I'm going to believe that the educators who are here with our kids every single day, the clericals, the custodians, the buildings and grounds, the administrators, and everyone, food service, and everyone else who I'm missing, the people who choose to work in a school system choose to work in a school system because they believe that they can make a difference in kids' lives. I'm going to keep that as a faith. I'm not going to doubt that. Distraction. One of the worst things that happens, and you all know it, you go down the rabbit hole, you look for one thing and you're down the rabbit hole and you're distracted for the next 20 minutes. If we distract ourselves from the vision and the mission of this organization, which is helping our kids succeed, then we are not helping our kids succeed. So we need to keep our eye on the prize and we need to focus. And that focus is, are our kids getting what they need to be the well-rounded citizens of tomorrow? And if they're not, we need to know that because we need to help them get there. And we need to help the system help them get there. There's a lot of discouragement right now. There are people who are thinking that we're going to have, that this virus is going to go away miraculously, that we're going to have an immunization tool within the next month or 2. I don't believe that. I don't think it's true. Biologically, I think it's going to take a while. But it's okay because today you got up, you got out of bed, you put your pants on or your skirt on, you're here, your kids are here, you made it through the day. You need to give yourself a pat on the back. We're living in this crazy world right now. The world is literally burning. We are literally having fires across that you can actually see the haze from the West Coast over our moon on the East Coast. And you made it through the day. And your kids made it through the day. So let's win each day. Let's take each day. Let's encourage each other one day at a time. We will go back to normal eventually. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but we will go back to normal eventually. So I'm asking this community to help us get rid of the 5 Ds. Have faith. Don't distort. There's no us versus them. We're here for Connecticut kids. Let's not distract from the vision of the fact that this organization and everyone in this room and everyone in this building and all other buildings in our district are here for our children. And let's encourage ourselves. because it's really hard to get out of bed in the morning with all of this stress and anxiety hanging over yourself. And you made it here, and it is 10 o'clock at night, on the dot, and you're still here because you want to be here to do right by our kids. So let's try to get over those 5 Ds. And I'm going to ask you to help us help you. One of my favorite places right now in the whole wide world is Facebook. Yeah. So,
I love Facebook. I have to just throw that out.
one of the favorite, and I'm being facetious, obviously. If you want a question answered, go to the source. Facebook's not the source. Facebook helps divide. Facebook helps distract. Facebook helps distort. So I'm going to ask you to do the right hierarchy, because the way things are happening right now is we're trying to solve problems. So in order to solve those problems, let's go to the person closest to where the problem is. And that's the teacher. If there's a problem with the teacher, give the teacher the benefit of the doubt. Have faith that they're here to do the right thing by kids. If you reach out to the teacher and say, hey, my son or daughter today said you didn't offer them a mask break. The teacher needs to answer that. And they need to try to solve the problem as close to the problem and close to the source. Because we want to ensure that our kids have the best, well-rounded education. We want to solve the problems as quickly as possible. Putting them on Facebook and waiting 2 more weeks till the next board meeting for us to put them out on a screen is not solving the problem 2 weeks ago. So a lot of the things we talked about today came to our attention over the weekend, the first weekend of school. So September 12th, a lot of these questions came. And by September 14th, we had solved a lot of those problems. But if you get to the person who can solve them, I need you to help us help you, because we're all here for kids. So really what we need to do is we want to solve those problems. Call the teacher or call the counselor. You know, when I see kids having lunch on day A and a study hall, but nothing on day B, that's a guidance counselor question. That's not a Facebook question. Call your guidance counselor. And if the guidance counselor doesn't get back to you, or the teacher doesn't get back to you, then you escalate up the chain in the hierarchy. You can call the principal. You can call the AP in charge of that grade level. You can call the AP in charge of that department. You can call the director in charge of that department, or the department chair. All those emails are on our website. Reach out to the person closest to the problem. If the problem doesn't get solved there, in-house, in the building, then you escalate that up. And generally, it's probably going to be Mr. Middleman or Miss Villarreal. If it's a transportation issue, it's a lunch issue. If it's a health issue, it's going to be Mrs. Santo. Those are the people who will help you solve that problem more quickly than waiting for the book that comes out every other week during our board meetings. If it doesn't get solved there, come to me. Email me. Call me. You'll find that if I get an email from you, I will call you. Probably on a Friday night and probably at 6 o'clock, because I'm still there trying to make sure that our kids are doing well. We're here for you. We're here for the kids. Please have faith that that's why we're here. We want to make this the best of the least perfect the school year we can ever have. We are never going to be perfect this year. We took an organization that's been involved in 55 years and we changed every single aspect of it. From transportation, busing, arrival, to masking kids, to cohorting children at the high school, to trying to have one-way hallways, to schedules that are A day, B day. We completely blew up and put the system back together. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Is it going to be perfect? No, it's not. Because it's not how we want to do business. We know that this is an imperfect system, but we want to get it as best as we can for kids. So I'm going to ask you, please, please, if one of those D's comes in your head, if you're doubtful, pick up the phone. If you're doubtful, create that email. But start as close to the problem that can be solved as possible. I really just, I'm going to ask you to do that. So, my last slide you've seen already. This is upstairs in the hallway in the high school. It says, everything new is hard at first. I've already talked to this slide last board meeting. We are not ideal. You know, we have 1,250 employees in this district, and I am proud of all of them because I think they're trying their hardest every single day. We are at our wits' end. You know, I have my technology staff over there, the best in the whole wide world, and I've worked in multiple districts, so I can say that without a doubt. They're here, they're online 24/7 trying to make things best for our kids in this scenario, best for our teachers. I'm proud of them all. We're working really hard, and it's new for a lot of us. In fact, it's new for just about everybody. So we're going to make it better incrementally, and hopefully we can make it better in large jumps. Because our job is to remain focused, and the focus has to be on our children. You know, I'm going to say it again, we're all anxious. We're all trying to make this the best experience we can. It's new for our teachers, our staff, our students, our communities. I know that there are glitches. We had this weird thing with the technology today. Our sonic wall, which protects the entire network and makes sure that our data doesn't flow in the wrong direction, had a glitch. It had a glitch in a new patch that we just installed. And Sonic Wall has taken full responsibility for it. And you know what? Our bring your own device policy failed today because our Sonic Wall failed. But my great technology staff over there, they got it back up and running. And they work really hard to do that. So yes, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be not ideal. But I'm going to ask you once again to be kind. Because as a Connecticut community, this too shall pass. The pandemic will go away. We will figure out whatever, if it's an immunization or if it's medicine, or it will pass, and you will still be living next door to your neighbors. And you will still have children out on the soccer field. So the best thing that you can do right now in this scenario is be kind. And get the answers as close to the source as possible. And that is our reopening presentation.
So, Linda, may I ask for an AP for Cherokee? I did have a few parents reach out to me. I've actually spoke to some people very close to the situation, and it's very dire that they get an AP in that building because there's a lot of movement there, and it's a lot of kids. It's one of our biggest, if not the biggest, elementary school building. So I'd like to get the permission from the Board of Education to add an AP to Cherokee.
Well, I think we have it right here. She actually did this for me as a breakdown. This is what I had asked for. Cherokee has 601 students, 532 are enrolled on, in total, and we have one administrator, 2 IFS.
Yeah, so I'm asking the Board of Education if we can bring some help to Cherokee, an AP position, or if someone else has.
So you want to make a motion to reinstate the AP position, is that what you're saying?
I did abstain when the original vote came through. So as an abstention, I don't know. I'm
No, it
legally
has to be someone
able.
that voted it and it went through. It has to be a yes vote.
I was under the impression that you were hiring someone part-time for that Cherokee. And didn't we discuss this last week?
No.
No, you weren't hiring someone part-time with Cherokee and then part-time doing something else?
Jesse, do you know what the votes were for that?
It was you 3 out. It was you 3. It was only me.
I abstained. Jackie said
voted
yes,
down,
and
Lee.
you three said
So it
no.
has to be Lee.
Here's the issue.
It's gotta be you, Lee, or Mark.
Here's
Right.
the issue. You got RMS. You got RMS with 272 kids on one day, 270 the other day. You have OBMS, 300 one day, 249 the other day. We have principals and assistant principals. Every elementary school has less than, the most is Sycamore with 375, Duffield 349, and the rest are under 300 or under 200. You have Connecticut High School with 849 one day and 708 the other day. And we put all the we put 4 administrators there, additional people. I'm just saying that you have one person there.
Wait, so we haven't had a discussion. Is Lee Eileen or Mark, are you willing to overturn your vote?
Yeah, they want to go into exec, we go into exec after this and talk it out, and then we could do that.
Is it, I didn't know if this is an exec or a question, so it's, okay.
It's personnel, so.
Okay. If I can also add to something, I'd like to, if the board's permission, I'd like to have a letter written to each department. Just our appreciation for the, opening of the schools. I know everybody had, a significant stake in opening our schools. So I'd like for the board's permission if we can write a letter to our teachers, our clericals, our transportation, our custodians, our technology, our lunch, staff. I mean,
Linda, can you get us a list of everyone there and maybe have something drafted up?
I also would like to add a letter to our students because I believe they were very resilient during this time. And I believe they should be acknowledged by the Board of Education for their, compliance. I hear that the kids have been wonderful. They've been, with their masks, they've been great. They've been resilient. So I also would like to send a letter out to our students as well to appreciate them and welcome them back to, Connecticut for, during these times, and glad that they were able to, live up to the challenge.
Okay. So Linda, you'll do that for us,
Perfect.
please? So, I don't know if you want your microphone.
Oh, sorry.
I'd like to thank you without having to write a letter because you're here and the great job that you did at our administration here. Because if it wasn't for this leadership, none of this would have happened. They brought the community together. They brought the teachers together. Everyone was nervous and anxious, as we all know. But every one of them sitting right there to our left has put in enormous amount of hours. They don't get overtime. Just to do the best they can. And they heard everyone's plea. They heard everyone's cry. They heard everyone talking on Facebook and people calling. So, it starts at the top right here. And they did a magnificent job. And I want to say thank you publicly.
Okay, with that, we're gonna move into public portion.
Wait, I got one more, sorry. Linda, since we are moving into
Put your
virtual times-
microphone.
Linda, since we're moving into virtual times, I guess this probably would be for the policy committee, maybe for you and Eileen and Lima, to talk about the grading policy. Because now that we're gone virtual and we have some grading, and I think things are a little bit different these days, not your normal, typical classroom day. If you can add that to the policy committee to talk about our grading. And maybe the percentages should be broken down a little bit differently than we've had in the past.
So most grading in classrooms are set by the teachers, but part of the grading policy is attendance. And I was speaking with our attorneys today about some questions about when you mark a child present who's actually in the virtual realm, what liability or a responsibility does that incur on the teacher who's marking that? So we certainly do need to look at that policy-wise. We are going to get some updates from our legal counsel as to what that actually might look like. So I will definitely bring that to policy committee.
All right, I'm gonna ask for the board to hold off. These people have been here since the start of the meeting. They came here to speak to us. Let's hear them. It's public portion time. Every person will have 3 minutes. There's not many of you, so if all of you want to speak, you can all speak. But please adhere to the 3-minute rule. I will ring a bell at the 10-second mark. Please watch the monitors for the time that Jesse puts up. Thank you. Yeah. Hi, nice to see you.
Good evening. Couple of things. Just something I want to bring to attention that a lot of the special education parents have complained to me about. In all the presentations over the summer, and obviously including tonight, it has never directly addressed the special education population. and how it is affecting them, specifically the high school and the life schools program. It was never discussed about how that would be implemented. And a lot of parents feel that that is a normal thing that we get pushed to the back, but this specifically during this time, it was not mentioned or addressed. So I just wanted to put that out there. That being said, the director of special education obviously is resigning. So the question is, now that we have done this whole move around of positions, something that was brought up, could the director position be eliminated now and the superintendent position be put back in? The reasoning behind that is because a director's position is a director's position, and you're not going to get money-wise somebody that is well-versed in special education and can handle the population that we have if money is always a talking point. And so when looking for people and vetting people for a job, you want somebody that's the highest of the highest with their qualifications and their training, because it goes them, department heads, teachers. And for special education, you want to make sure that your IEPs are being implemented and that the teachers and the department heads and the coordinators are all working on the same page. And so as special education, could we eliminate the director position and reinstate an assistant super? Pretty much if the chain of command is broken and IEPs are not being met, we have a problem and it needs to be addressed. So could that be, I don't know if that's exec, obviously. you guys
That
have
is
to
an
talk about that.
exec discussion, and I can tell you that we are talking about different things.
Okay, and in the meantime, while this is all moving around, is an interim going to be put in place?
Absolutely.
Okay. Soon?
Correct, Linda? I'll let her answer that.
Yes, we already have a list of the folks that are in the Eastern Suffolk Boces catchment area who might be interested and who have credentials in order to do the job and have done the job
Just
in
like you,
other places. So it's
But in
usually, it's
the
generally
interim,
retirement.
will somebody be promoted to the interim until that position is filled?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming down tonight. Hold on one second. Hi, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you, Barb and everything else. I would just like to speak to the fact of a decision the board just made 2.5 hours ago regarding a portion of the building, the pool. You all voted before you opened up the playgrounds, you opened up the fields. The pool is a pretty unique setting. It mostly in regard to, there is one particular organization, the Connect Quat Swimming and Diving Club, right? So we're talking about letting the kids being kids. We're talking about not dividing. We're talking about kids being resilient. All over the place, there's hand sanitizer, right? Antiseptic, disinfectant. The kids are swimming in gallons of it, or would normally be swimming in gallons of it, right? It kills everything, including the COVID, right? So I'm asking you to please reconsider your decision. And at least, I understand you don't want other organizations using the school, the inside of the school. I think the pool should be an exception. The director of the club emailed the board the plan. He put together a 6-page plan, including limiting entrance, egress, temperature checks, using masks when they're not swimming. You mentioned before, the CDC just put out new guidelines. It's not transmitted on barriers or surfaces. In case you haven't been down to the pool, it's nothing but poured concrete bleachers. There's 4 metal handrails and a handful of metal bleachers, all right? Dr. Adams, you raved about your custodial staff before. If they're doing such a great job, this really shouldn't be an issue. If you continue with this, and first of all, there are several other districts that have already opened their pools and are allowing their clubs to swim. We are one of the few that are not. All right, and again, and the kids all know it. We're talking about 175 families, Connect Quat families that know that they're not allowed to swim, and they know their competition, their peers in surrounding areas are swimming. You're leaving them out. You've opened up everything else. I please ask you to reconsider your decisions in regard to the pool.
Thank you. No, it's public question. Let public speak.
Hello. Question about the SAT. Being that we might try to get a date back, what about putting back on Saturday's date, the 26th?
We have to,
Because the College Board is still not showing that they're canceled.
Oh.
Because if it was showing it was canceled, I would have gotten an email saying, don't come Saturday. West Babylon let the College Board know within 48 hours, their emails went out. We still haven't gotten an email. I've called College Board every day. So they were telling us, parents, a lot of senior parents, that they weren't even notified. I don't care if they were notified, not notified. If there's a way to reinstate this Saturday's test, why not?
can we try to do that, Linda? If it's not showing up, it's canceled.
It's,
You want to pause her time, please, Jess?
Yeah, we've been trying to contact the College Board about that very thing and reinstating the 26th and October 3rd. Unfortunately, the 26th is this Saturday, and it's very unlikely that we'll be able to, even if they reinstate October 3rd, which is what I'm pushing for. It's highly doubtful that the 26th they'll be able to reinstate, send us exams, get us proctors within the next 3 days. I don't anticipate that happening. But as I said, I'm working very hard to get the October 3rd date, and we are working to get a makeup date for the 26th, which, as Dr. Adams said, would be October 10th. And if they do that, that's the email that would go out to all the registrants saying that the exam was postponed and that the new date is October 10th.
okay. Now, why when there was canceled, someone had to have canceled it. I don't care if it could have been a custodian for all I know. Why wasn't, when they decided to cancel it, for whatever the reasons are, COVID, not COVID, why weren't the parents notified, especially the Connecticut parents notified immediately? So if this was decided to be, it couldn't have been decided to be canceled a week ago. I mean, I severely doubt it, unless someone tells me otherwise. If it was decided a month, 2 months ago to be canceled, why not at least notify your own community? So we would have had the opportunity to switch the September 26th to another location. We were only told a week and a half ago, and we weren't told. It was leaked out from the high school to students. Students came home. Parents started screaming. Unfortunately, there was one principal who probably got the blunt of it, who handled it very well. But it shouldn't have had to come to that. We shouldn't have to go looking for these answers the minute that it was decided to be canceled, and that's the Connecticut's total choice. At least immediately when you make that decision, notify the parents. So you're giving them the option to go look for another place. I was able to change my November to Sable. I can't change my November 26th. I want the 2 tests. I can't make the October 3rd. If I would have been notified 2 months ago, I could probably have a test this Saturday. But that's where transparency is not there. When you find out something that serious, let the parents know. Give them that option. Then it doesn't fall on your plate. That's one. Still have no idea who canceled it because no one's letting the parents know. I said something on Facebook, a simple question, just asking. Nobody replied to me. I even tagged people. And then finally, Malin, you said you would put it on. But people shouldn't have to keep bugging one principal. That poor man got slammed with questions
And then I know you got slammed, but it should never get to there.
So, you want me to take that, Linda? You want to take that?
Like going forward, don't do this the next coming years of SAT kids. Parents were saying on there, the colleges are waiving SATs. Some, yeah, not all. My son was going for a scholarship. He needs that SAT. It's required from a recruiter that deals with ConnectWatt. So it is necessary. So people have no right to say, don't worry about it. It needs to be addressed. When the school makes that strong of a decision on something, they have to notify the parents at that time, not 2 or 3 months later, or letting it slip out a week before that occasion. And it's happened before. This is something serious.
Thank you.
And I just have one more thing.
Actually, time's up, so.
It was just something about the honor societies. Thank you for putting that back on. There were 10th graders last year that went through their applications, their interviews, all of their stuff. They were told that they were going to be looked at and that they would be notified because they would have been initiated at the end of 10th grade, not 11th grade. The party stuff, none of that stuff is important. They just want it for their record.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Do we have another speaker? Okay, just give us a second to sanitize. Hi, welcome.
Hello. Yeah, I don't know.
You're 6 feet apart from
Okay.
everybody. You can take it off if you'd like.
I'm Dana Hagan. I have 3 children in the Connecticut district. I have a senior. It's not the greatest year for her to be a senior. Just to follow up on Mrs. Giacone's comments about the SAT, we found out through our children, my daughter has had a wonderful experience through Connecticut for all of these years. And with everything being canceled last year, the first time that I've seen my daughter white as a ghost was, I think, last week, maybe a few days ago, when she came to me and said the SAT was canceled. For Christmas, being, kind of like on my own with my daughter, and she has a stepfather, but I bought her a tutor for the SATs just to boost her up a little bit. She was prepared to take it in March. It was canceled the day before. No one could do anything about it. It was March 13th. So here we are, and now it's canceled a few days before. She was so sick about it, and everything's been canceled. Junior Cruise, Hershey Park, California, everything. So I said, don't worry about it. We'll go wherever you need to go. But I found out, again, through Facebook. I don't want to find out through Facebook. I want to be notified. So I said to her, this is not true. This is a rumor. Don't worry about it. But sure enough, on comments on Facebook, and I have to go through about 50 comments, yes, it is true. The SAT is canceled. Mr. Moran got in touch with me. Dr. Adams, you know that I write to you. I am a writer. I'm passionate about this. I don't want my daughter to have a bad experience in her last year, but it's looking that way. It's the first month of school. Actually, it's the first 10 days of school. It's her senior year. Okay. So I'm going to take her where I need to go with her. We're going on a girls' trip this weekend to get it done because, quite honestly, sadly, I cannot trust Connecticut will do for her what I need to have be done. She, like everyone else, needs to take the SAT because I would like for her to get a scholarship. She wants to go to certain colleges that require the SAT. It is too late. I looked everywhere on Long Island for her to take this SAT. It's not going to happen. We're going to go to Connecticut. So she's going. That's one thing. Secondly, Miss Jennifer Bay is the coordinator of the Kick Line and the Color Guard. She's doing a wonderful job. She has been in touch with these girls since day one. I cannot say that about many of the others, I'm sorry, but she has gone above and beyond, as well as all the music teachers. She would be great at doing some kind of virtual program for these girls. That would be another thing. So I would like everyone to reconsider. I'm sorry, I had a really bad day. I wasn't planning on coming. I left my car running because I was filling out 5 health forms today. So someone during lunch told me that my car was running at 12 noon. So anyway, because I had to fill out 5 health forms on my way to work or whatever I'm doing. So I wasn't planning on coming. I would also like to just say that Mr. Pollock goes above and beyond. He's the Sycamore principal. I have a lot to say. I'm sorry. I'm just going through everything. He goes above and beyond. I know everything that's going on in that building. I know what the kids are, lunch situations. I know the bus situations. He calls all the time. I would like us to do something with the communication in this district. We have an acting principal. Do something about it. I feel like we need a little bit more with the principal. We have positions that have been cut. Mr. Macaluso's position. So everyone's blaming it on somebody that's not even here. The SAT situation, that's someone's job that's not even existing anymore. That's what people are blaming on all over Facebook. I want to know, when did we know that this SAT was not going to be happening anymore? So we could have planned efficiently for our kids. You know that I want to provide solutions. Since my daughter has been in kindergarten, and I student taught at Sycamore, since my daughter entered kindergarten, I wanted her to be successful. This was my goal for her. And to have it go down like this with lacks of communication, she is an amazing kid. She takes AP classes. She does, much more than I've ever done. And to see her like that, we need to do more. We need to have the communication. I suggested the Google Classrooms for the seniors, and Mr. Moran did it. But let's communicate with them. They also, they were doing the pictures for the seniors where they had to dress up with their gear, their Connect gear. I asked my daughter, did you wear your Connect gear when you had your picture taken? And she said, I didn't even know about it. So whatever, it just happened. That's really sad for me that I knew about it. She didn't know about it. We have Google Classroom set up for these kids. Use it. I suggested it. Let's use it. Let's communicate. I don't want to be doubtful. I listened to everything you said. I took notes on what you were saying because I want to believe it every day. I want to wake up and believe that my daughter is going to have an amazing senior year. It's not looking that way. I got together with another parent. We're organizing a shirt design for these seniors to do something for them because nothing is being done. I understand that it's the 10th day of school, but you know what? As far as I'm concerned, and I'm an educator as well, we're into November because by the time this stuff gets accomplished, it's November. Club advisors who think about this kind of thing in the summer, we need to get onto it right now. We will help them. The parents want to be involved. We have a bunch of
I
parents.
have to ask you to wrap it up because we have other people to speak. I'm sorry.
We have a bunch of parents that want. She can take my spot. There's 10 of us.
Come on back up.
We have a bunch of parents that want the best for our kids. That's why we're here.
Absolutely, that's why we're
I
here.
know. I watch all of you. I would love to say that I don't really care, but I do. I care. I watch all of you. I feel like I know all of you because I've watched so many of the YouTube presentations and everything. You know me. I don't want this year to go down for my child like this. I just want more communication. If we have to hire Mr. Moran as the principal and give him that, then let's do it. Let's do something.
He's already the probationary principal, so I don't know where that's
He's
coming from.
acting. Let's just do it.
But
Let's
didn't
get this
legal say
going.
that that's probationary?
But that doesn't matter. Let's get the communication with the parents. We want to help you. We don't know what to do. We're just kind of lost. And then to get this SAT slapped in our face, it was very upsetting because, like I've said, my daughter was at school until 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and then she'd go to dance. And I wouldn't see her until she came home at 10 o'clock. Since COVID, we've been jogging, we've been doing a lot, and that's what I'm appreciative for with the COVID. But I'm not really happy right now that she's getting home at 12:30 and she has nothing to do until maybe like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. She's sitting home, she's bored. Thank you for reinstating the clubs, but more clubs need to be done. Habitat for Humanity. All of these things.
We
These
are going
kids
to
have
revisit
so
those
many.
and see how they can be done virtually. We
And
are
I have
definitely
to say-
revisiting that. We have to have one speaker at a time. I'm sorry that I have to wait. You have to be at the podium to speak, please.
But let's get these clubs going too. Miss Bay, she comes to the girls' houses. She does everything. She would know how to do something virtually for these girls, for anyone that needs help. She could do. She does the union. So I don't really know the name of it, but it's some kind of union. She would do anything for these kids. The music teachers, I'm sure they're all volunteering their time because they're amazing. Let's get more things going for these kids. They need to be a little bit busier. They can't just be complacent right now because that's really what's happening to them. And it's sad because I've never actually seen some of these kids just come home and just be like, right now my daughter's like, whatever. She was never like this. She was never like, and I hate to even say my daughter because she would probably be like cringing right now if she knew that I was talking But I just, you have dreams for your child. And I was thinking, COVID, it's going to go, it's fine. It's going to be all right. And I want to be positive for her. So I'm always like, it's great. And let's jog and let's do this. But you know what? After the SAT and everything, she's like, I just want this year to be over. It's the 9th or 10th day of school. We can do better. We can do much better. And
We could always improve. You're right.
like I said, I gave 2 suggestions. I have 2 fifth graders. I don't know what kind of education they're getting right now, but we need to focus on these seniors. We need to get them on the good path, focus on them. Let's just communicate. That's all. Because you know what? Sadly, I can't trust Connecticut right now because, and I'm listening, like I said, I listened to Dr. Adams' whole speech, but my daughter will not take an SAT through Connecticut. I can't do it because I've lost sleep about this. Probably nor will my other children. I can't do it. It's sad.
Thank you.
I really wish that we should be in high school. Wasn't just.
Thanks, Jesse. Hello, love.
Hi, guys.
What's happening?
So first I'd like to bring up the director position for guidance. I think that was a humongous mistake. Like, I think that you guys don't realize how much help children applying for college need and how much help they weren't getting before Mr. Macaluso was here. When he was here,
Let them speak.
he literally brought ideas and things that were never considered when my older son graduated high school. He didn't get any help from this school at all. I actually had to hire someone from the outside to help him to apply for schools. And I think that that's what's going to happen again. And that's only going to be good for the people who can afford to do that. So everybody else is going to be discriminated against in a sense. That was my first thing. My second thing is I also, as a SEPTA member, think it would be really important to reconsider bringing back the superintendent position. I've spoken to people in the special education world, and they said that there's no way that anybody's going to take a position like that for the money of a director. They're just not going to do it, not if they're qualified. Why would they? You get what you pay for in this world. They're not going to apply for a job and make $30,000 less if they're qualified to make. So that's another thing that I hope that you guys would consider or reconsider. Also, I think that our teachers need training for the behavioral intervention plan, so they don't need a room like Jackie wants to, I know, isn't happy with. But if the teachers had training, these things don't have to go to the level where they need to go to a room like this. If the teachers know how to, follow through on the BIPs and the IEPs, it shouldn't get to that point. So I think we need to invest more in training our teachers how to follow through on that. That's really it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Anyone else? Lee, no, this is the public portion. Lee, this is the public portion. Oh, you want to bring that in executive? That's fine. You can talk about it in executive. Yes, but this is public portion right now. Hi, how you doing?
Good, yourself?
All righty.
I just have actually 2 quick questions and a comment. I went into the men's room, and then coming out, I saw a sign on the door about the cleaning process. And my question is what is the protocol now for like cleaning the bathroom or cleaning the shields? Like my daughter told me that every day she's got to lug this now from class to class, and it's a mess, as if it wasn't cleaned. So I just want to know what's the protocol for cleaning that, because now the CDC says you really don't have to worry about hard surfaces, but she's coming up every time and cleaning the microphone and everything that everybody touches. So is it hard surfaces? Is it not hard surfaces? That's one thing. Can anybody?
We'll
answer
have
that?
you address that in a second. Let him finish you finish what you're saying, and then we'll have him address that.
Okay. The other thing is then I'm looking on the door with the protocol that's set there, and it daily's checked off, but there's nothing that's checked off that says that the high touch surfaces were cleaned. And the 2 that I passed were done for the PM shift, which I assume is now or at the end of the day. So dailies were checked off, but no high surfaces were checked off anytime throughout the morning, the day, the afternoon. So is that being cleaned? Then I walked past the room and I watched the guy spray the shields with a backpack sprayer and just go up and shoot the front, shoot the side, shoot the side, and shoot the front. And I'm looking at all where the handle grips are completely loaded with fingerprints. So they're not being wiped down. They're just being sprayed and that's it. So I asked my daughter the same thing the following day. And now it just confirmed what she's been telling me, that it's a mess. She's taken this. She doesn't know whose it was the day before. It's not their names on it.
Right.
So who knows who was touching it? Who knows if what they did in the bathroom came back out? And now she's got somebody else shield the next day that had a little soapy water or whatever chemical they use in the spray on it. You know, I'm in the healthcare field, and to clean something properly, you actually have to wipe it. A spray does not get rid of anything. Okay, it may kill bacteria, it may kill germs, it may disinfect, but it's not removing anything off the surface. So if you go over with a pump sprayer and spray a piece of glass and leave it there, everything still remains, whether they kill the bacteria or not, but everything else is left behind. So all those fingerprints and everything that she's carrying around from class to class, from day to day, now whether she's washing her hands fully and coming home, now she's bringing that to the house too. So that's my comment is that you guys said that things were being taken care of or that were taken care of. An example, still to this day, my daughter is not getting mask breaks, coming home every day with headaches, not feeling well, loss of appetite. She just comes home, does what she has to do, and now she's taking a nap. So now she naps until 8 o'clock, and now she don't sleep during the night. So now it's really messing with her schedule. So I asked her, did you say anything? And she's not the person that would say anything to anybody. She's very quiet. You said to send emails. It's all over Facebook. Everybody's talking about it. It's still not being addressed. I asked her today, did you get the break? Nope. So.
Is she in high school?
I'm sorry?
Is she in high school?
Yes. So, she won't say anything. Like if she knew I was here saying this now, she'd be yelling at me. So she won't say anything. She doesn't want to create waves. And in this society now, if you do say something, everybody's offended. And then it's kind of payback at the end. Well, you ratted me out, so now I got to get even with you. That's just the way it works. And she kind of knows that at a young age already, that if you make a wave, there's going to be repercussions from either that person or whatever's going on. So she tells me not to say anything, but I think now I have to start saying things. It's crazy.
No, it's gonna be addressed.
Yeah, it absolutely has to be addressed. This is something, I understand there's a lot of protocols that need to be set. Nobody was prepared for this. I worked in the field 3 months, two months before this was happening, and I started seeing this slowly develop. Didn't know what it was, but nobody else did either. But there was a progression to it. And everybody started seeing these same symptoms going on, but nobody knew. Then we find out. Now we got to backtrack. But we had plenty of time, I think, to be able to put things in place on proper disinfecting, what needs to be done. I know some of the chemicals that you guys are using aren't really that effective to deal with this anyway. So, or in the beginning at least. I don't know currently, but I know in the beginning,
I'm going to let John speak to that.
So should I stay?
However you want to do it. You can hang out, you can go sit, whatever you want to do.
So, in respect to the cleaning protocols, and what you're seeing on the maintenance logs at all the spaces and things throughout the building, we are still dealing with the time constraints involved with cleaning $1.4 million. We put 1.4 million square feet of buildings. The time it takes to check those spaces, to sign off, for the supervisor to acknowledge that they checked it and physically walk the space to make sure they've been cleaned and disinfected, is not happening every single time with all of the high touch areas. So during the school day, you'll see the custodians go through the hallways and they're wiping down the handrails and the bathrooms and the doorknobs and the light switches and all of those very common areas. They're using a product, either Alpha and or Virex. They're antibacterial. They have a typical kill time of about 4 minutes. So during the middle of a period, We're able to wipe these areas down, they air dry, they clean, disinfect at the same time with the wiping processes. At the end of the night, when we get into the actual disinfecting process, you're right, we are trying multiple different ways to figure out what it's gonna actually take to clean and wipe down, physically touch and polish both sides with microfibers and everything else. We're talking about close to 5,000 dividers in the district, 1,800 in this building alone. We had 6 custodians in the building on Saturday going through the process, using microfibers, using cleaners, wiping down both sides to try to eliminate as many of those smudges and fingerprints that, that you're seeing. We haven't figured out the best process. We haven't figured out the best cleaning solutions versus disinfecting. You're right. At the end of the night, we're going around with a backpack sprayer because in order to administer that amount of square footage of disinfectant, it can't always physically wipe down. Obviously, it's a much better process if we're able to wipe down everything and actually make sure everything touches every single surface area.
Yeah, but he's not even spraying the entire unit down. I stood there and watched at the doorway. He didn't know I was there.
Okay.
It's a couple little sprays and then on to the next one. But if you're gonna spray on the main piece, that's fine where you're sitting. Not even the back end of it, but where you're sitting. But the handles could be easily just wiped as you walk by after you spray it. That's one thing. Second thing is the bathroom now that I just used. It's marked off as PM, signed off with a signature, none of the either daily or evening. So some point throughout the day today, that wasn't done. But one of the classrooms has that the high surfaces were clean.
Okay,
So I'm a little confused. Like a bathroom to me would be more concerning to have clean.
Right, and I'm saying that piece of it, I will guarantee the bathrooms are being cleaned and disinfected more than once a day. I think it's the time constraints that they're not doing it, and you may think that it's not.
But it's not, no. I'm not saying that they're not doing it. What I'm saying is the checklist that says it was completed.
Right.
Is checked that it was not completed and signed that it wasn't completed.
Okay, so I'll take a look at that space in particular, and the signatures will let me track down exactly who the person is to make sure that they are following proper protocols. We do have 3 shifts in this building. There are people from midnight to 6 in the morning that are going into their dedicated areas. This space itself will be clean until midnight, so you're not going to see it checked off and everything else. But if there's a discrepancy that something's signed off and it's not being cleaned, absolutely it will be addressed. I've been in all of the buildings at various times over the past 10 days. I've talked to the heads and chiefs. We've discussed the process of disinfecting. If someone's taking shortcuts, we need to address it. So that's easily addressed. Not easily monitored moving forward, but it's actually very easily addressed. So,
And I have one last thing, being especially like my daughter who's very quiet, who won't reach out, guidance counselors really got to help through this process. I don't think anybody has reached out to her yet. She won't make the initiative because she's quiet. And she is a senior and there's a lot of things that are affecting these kids now that we never thought were going to happen. This is so unprecedented what their experience is going to be for moving to the future. We went to look at a couple of colleges early on, and it's just a process that's not expected that we have to go through. And they're not prepared for it. Nobody's prepared for it. But I think that the guidance counselors really do have to reach out to the kids to try to see where they go and try to help them go through this process. And I don't think they're getting that right now.
Agreed.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Okay, at this time, I'm going to then ask for a motion and a second to go into executive agenda, executive.
No, I wanted to ask a few questions.
Oh, okay. Good.
What have I said?
Oh, yep. Have at it. I'm gonna actually step out.
All right, I'm gonna just ask a few. All right, one, and I'll bring this back up in executive as well. Linda, I'm like looking over the thing. I'm trying to understand that I've now heard not many good things, mostly from this building. This is the building that I've got the most, that I've gotten the most of the complaints and the emails that we've sent you guys they mostly have to do it here. I understand titles and, calling whatever we're gonna call things, but here's the problem that I have, in my personal opinion. We have a lot of titles, but not a lot of leadership in the buildings, okay? I don't really, I'm sorry, it's like, I'm saying it, I guess, as a parent as well. I'm not looking forward to my own child coming here next year, and that's not how it should be. The same with the last year, we tried to do whatever we could for the seniors. We really need to do the same thing and step it up. If guidance hasn't reached out to students yet, they need to start doing that. They shouldn't need a director in place to do that. We used to have an assistant principal that did that. Who is in charge of them right now? Is it one of the APs or no?
Yeah, it's Mr. Sidman.
Okay, well, then can we by the next meeting get some sort of report that states how many students have they sat down with? How many of them have spoken to students, especially our seniors and our 11th graders, to find out what they are looking at doing for college? Like numbers, every one of them, whether we have 7 or 8 of them, how many have they spoken to and how many a day? I mean, I just want to get like what you did for me with the YFS and the principals. Sometimes you have to have some accountability for the responsibilities to be covered. I mean, we're getting a lot of those issues. Okay, here's a couple of things that people had brought up. I just want to send them out there. I know I appreciate all the stuff. You guys did a great job going over the emails we sent you guys. That was excellent. You really hit a lot of things that we went over. A couple of things that I heard: kids coming in after BOCES during 6th period have nowhere to go to get a divider or a cubby. I didn't hear that one. Was that anybody? Or something we can look into?
6th period BOCES, we've been keeping dividers by the back door where our seniors come in when they have late arrivals. So if we have a place that we need to stock some cubbies for 6th period, that we can certainly do that.
Okay, well, great. Parents are receiving robocalls that virtual kids or kids on a virtual day are absent when they are logged in. Attendance office told parents that the students must message their teachers directly to have it corrected. Shouldn't parents be the ones that are contacting? Otherwise, can't any child just say, I was logged on and really wasn't, or any kid was logged on? I also heard that some kids were logged on and waited 10 minutes and it was black screen, so they left the class because after 10 minutes, and 15 minutes is when the class actually started late due to technological issues. I'm tongue-tied over here right now. And I just wanted to know, like, what are we going to do with that kind of stuff to make sure that kids aren't, you don't want them to have more anxiety that they think they missed a class when really they waited at least 10 minutes. I got a couple of need more creative thinking for gym class. Like basketball, each kid use their own, then wipe it before they leave the class. Lack of equipment used for phys ed. Specials for virtual need to be reimagined. These are just some ideas. Students are complaining that that there's no time to ask questions because the teachers are so, oh no, this is 4th and 5th, I apologize. Students are complaining there is no time to ask questions because teachers are split between both of the first class and the second. And I think you guys already know my opinion of that, 4th and 5th. I personally don't like the split. I understand why it's being done, but I don't support it. Parents feel the Google Meet lessons are not effective and feel there are benefits from teacher support, guidance, 504s and IEPs not being met. IEPs are a huge concern for all parents. Blacking out the screen with virtual for some reason. Some of the kids are saying that that's what's happening. Some of the elementary schools have homework on Google Classroom, and some are actually using Dittos. And a lot of the parents are worried that without the Dittos or the math workbooks and things like that, when they're printing them out, things are coming out dark, and they're worried about the handwriting, especially for the younger kids. They're worried that they could regress. For certain desks, positions, the dividers cause a blind spot for seeing the smart board. The people are saying that there's hearing issues with hearing over them, and apparently there's water stains and all that where they're cloudy, hard to see. I didn't know if maybe we could get some wipes more like a glass wipe, like a Windex wipe, and allow the children themselves, if they want to wipe them down. I know my daughter wipes her mirror down at home, so she wouldn't mind wiping the front of it if it's, some kids probably don't care, but the ones that do, they'd have that option. You hit on that. Let me see what the other one, lanyard, the lanyards. Yeah, that's it. They were wondering if they came in, did they come in, are they coming in, ETA for them? And the fire drills. Can we do fire drills for the virtual students? Teachers could explain to the kids who are home what they need to do. I know that we had said even the kids in class, I remember at one of the meetings we had discussed, they were gonna do that anyway, do videos for a lot of the kids so that we meet the standards. I know you have more. Well, I know you're piggy.
Can I piggyback onto some of the things?
Well, we already went over all the math stuff, though. The math week, we got that. I think I'm good.
Okay, so some of the parents were concerned on the elementary level with the recess. While some children are playing on the playground area, what are the kids doing on the asphalt area? There's not a lot of creative ideas with them. I understand they can't touch a ball, they can't. So some, I don't know, maybe hopscotch, maybe something a little bit more, that the kids can get involved in, kind of busy their time and enjoy the fresh weather. I know I've seen it repeatedly on Facebook. I was actually tagged multiple times how teachers were not trained effectively on the technology piece of Google Classroom and other platforms that you have. I know, Dean, that you had put out a presentation at our last board meeting of the various platforms that were demonstrated or offered to our teaching staff. But it's been constantly put out there that there was no effective training. The training has been ineffective. And so going back to, what you were saying about the 3Ds, 5Ds, I from hearing what your presentation was, Dean, it seemed like you had provided a lot of opportunities for the technology piece. What I'm hearing from you, Dean, is that the last 2 weeks in June, especially on the secondary level, because we weren't doing Regents instructions Regents test, because there was no Regents test, that there was even further professional development given in particular to the technology areas. So I just, I get a little frustrated when I see an email that says, I'm not tech savvy. I was never instructed in how to use a Google Classroom. As a Board of Education, as a trustee, I was kind of frustrated by seeing that. Another thing that I was also very frustrated on is how much testing was done between March and June. I could tell you, not a lot. Now I'm seeing how is testing going to be done now with our students K through 12. How are we assessing? How are we testing? And that's what I'm going back to, that grading policy. Is that something that we need to address? How are our children being monitored, assessed, and properly, if any weaknesses or anything, how are they being addressed? My other question is, if a staff member, doesn't matter who it is, gets infected with the virus, can you just please, maybe, I guess, Gail, would you be the best person to kind of talk through it? So it's any staff, it could be a sub, it could be a clerical, it could be anybody. If you're infected, what is the protocol?
Yes, if a staff member is infected, whether they are sent home because of symptoms and they take a positive test, or they learn outside of the district that they're exposed and they call us and tell us, the first thing that we have to do is contact the Department of Health. But simultaneously, the Department of Health already knows from the test provider that assessed that person. The district has to work closely with the Department of Health to have a tracing mechanism. And that means, as I had said earlier, to make sure that we assess with whom and how many people that person that has tested positively has come into contact with. And then as such, we would have to notify those families. The Department of Health may elect to do that or give us a letter. And those people would have to be quarantined for a 14-day period, until which time that there's an assurance that no symptoms will present. When someone is positive, the Department of Health will release that person, quote unquote, from isolation and permit the person to come back within that 14-day period. But once it's a definitive positive test, the Department of Health is actively involved. Yes, Mr. Kolahifar could piggyback with me, but if anyone is sent home with a positive test result, then they will be paid according, as if they were here at work, because they are not permitted to come back.
So if I was away over the weekend
Mhm.
in areas where state where
Such as a hotspot?
right, any hotspot areas,
Mhm.
and I come back.
Mhm.
So do I get paid for my time, or is that taken from my sick bank because I was in a hotspot area?
Because you mean because you have to quarantine?
Yes.
Okay, well, Mr. Kolahifar could piggyback with me, but my understanding is that if a person chooses to go to a hotspot area knowingly, and they have to come back in quarantine, then that was their choice. Mr. Kolahifar, would you like to speak to that?
There are some, we've gotten some guidance from the attorneys that teachers are, and there's been some discrepancy about this, whether teachers are considered essential or not. Essential employees who go to those hot states can still come back to work so long as they are not symptomatic. But if an employee goes to one of those hot states and has to quarantine, then they're going to have to use their own time if they want to stay on payroll.
Thank you.
And if I may add to that, what Mr. Kolahifar, remember that 3:00 call with the New York State Department of Health? I did receive clarification on essential partners, because again, we were told by the local Department of Health that teachers and educators are no longer essential. That is not true. We are essential. But as each case is looked at individually insofar as the 4 attestation questions, and one of them is, have you traveled to a hotspot? If a person, so right now at my desk, on my desk, I received a question from a staff member. We are essential and I must travel to Florida. So must I quarantine when I return? So I reviewed that scenario with New York State Department of Health, and that person is essential, but where there's some judgment to be considered for traveling is the reason the person is traveling. So if it's imperative and an emergency and it's a hotspot, such as a funeral or a court appointment, something that is unavoidable, then the person as an essential, as long as Reza is correct, remains asymptomatic. They may return to work as an essential employee, and as long as they abide by the 4 attestation commitments, wearing a mask, taking their temperature every day, quarantining. However, if that same person chose to go to Florida for a week's vacation during our next break, and it was still a hotspot, then they would have to quarantine even though they're essential. So that's the only discretion the district is given. The intent, because again, to protect the greater good, we know that right now, I believe 33 states are considered hotspots. They're updated every Tuesday by the New York State Department of Health, and we will make that known. And when we have our attestations, I'm going to post, when we revise our parent Q&R codes, we're modifying it right now. We're going to make those states known every time they fill it out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lee, you have a couple questions?
Yes, I'd like to address the woman that talked about guidance. No, she talked about guidance here, and there's a couple other people who talked about the high school. And I can say what I'm thinking, and I can say what I feel to address these people. No, that they did let go of someone that was, I believe, was essential. in guidance. I believe they let a dean was let go at the high school, and AP was let go at the high school. They set the high school up for failure, is my opinion. And I think you, as parents, should be screaming about those things. Guidance was excellent. The gentleman that was there knew all about what colleges, he knew people in different avenues, and he was excellent. The dean, it's true, the dean that was there had so many kids come up to him and talk to him, especially now, I would think it would be even more important. He's gone, he's back in the classroom.
We can't talk with the audience right now. She can just-
No, that's, hold on.
I can't,
I'll take care of it.
I can't speak to what they're doing now. I don't know who's overseeing them now. I don't know. I
Lee,
don't
but
know.
this is the thing, regardless who we got.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just
No, it's
talking.
not arguing. I want to ask you something. You have more experience than me. No, I want to ask you something, seriously. Okay, so people will let go. What about the people who are here? What about the people in this high school right now? Why are we not addressing people dropping the ball? People are dropping the ball. The ball was thrown to them, and they need to either rise to the occasion, or we may need to go back to a year ago and change it up again. Because I hate to tell everybody this, but everyone told me this was going to be a better year, Jackie. It'll be a better year. Calm down, breathe, stay calm, do this. And I'm telling you, Lee, we have all these guidance counselors, right? We're all adults. You should not need a director to tell you how to do your job. You do your job well, I give them credit, but then do it well. We have children who are seniors. We have children who are in 9th, 10th, and 11th that we don't know what kind of anxiety they're going through. The first week of school, second week of school, kids should be getting called down there. They should. They shouldn't need a director to do that. They shouldn't need an additional AP because we put in an interim. So we have 3 assistant principals right now and an acting principal, okay? I don't know about you, but we have half the students here every day. Half the students.
Okay, all right, ladies,
We have-
ladies.
And we have,
wait.
and we have virtual children.
Jackie, Lee was speaking. Let Lee finish speaking, please.
But I'm just saying that.
I know, but let Lee
explain
finish
to me.
speaking, please.
You can't keep saying that it's just that.
I understand, but she had the floor. She had the floor. You can have the floor after her.
I'd say an executive, we should discuss the principalship. I think we should.
Can I continue and address the guidance situation? I know what guidance has been like in the past, and I'm not gonna knock any guidance counselors. They do the best they can. We brought in someone that had a lot of experience with a guide. You know, if you get hired in a position and you're not guided for X amount of years, you're never going to improve. But when you bring someone in that's a professional, that has been doing it and has been doing it thoroughly and right, and is coming in to educate our staff, but our staff don't have time to bring in Dartmouth or whoever college, or they don't know the people that they can talk to in Columbia or whatever college. This gentleman knew who to reach out to, knew the kids, learned about the kids. This is what this gentleman did. He improved our guidance to such a degree that I never heard a thing bad other than something positive about guidance. And I've been hearing about guidance for years. They were doing a great job. They had a great administrator to help them and educate them to be better. Okay? They do one thing, he was doing, helping them and doing other things to improve it. So that's that story. In terms of the dean, he brought a lot of kids went to him. End of story. I can't even say more about that. And I think maybe your daughter even might have gone to her, well, would go to someone like him, because he was just there for the kids. In terms of the AP, they brought a temp in. He only could stay for 10 days. I think they're looking for AP, but we used to have one more. Okay? I think we're dumbing down rather than improving in areas that are important. and the high school is the bell tower of the district. We should keep it that way. You know, it's important for your child and other people's children to get the best education they can. Have someone to talk to when they're emotionally distraught. Have someone they feel comfortable with. Have people in the hallways. You know, that was happening. It was slowly, even the rap room that they wanted to disband. There was a reason for it, a purpose, to help kids. So rather than kick them out of school, just talk to them, educate them. They were in a room. They didn't have privileges like other kids. You don't understand. These kids were disciplined in a kind way. So this way they can make themselves better rather than throwing them out in the building or sticking them in a room with no one to talk to, or they're labeled bad. We're dumbing down our high school. You know, that's how I feel. And I feel very sad about it.
I don't really think that it's dumbing down, Lee. I'm gonna have to address that because I don't feel we're dumbing down. I feel like when you have less students in the building and you have there are students that are virtual now, where there are students on group A and group B. I want to know why we aren't addressing.
You
that
dumbed
we
it
have less
down
students in
before.
school. Wait, no, Lee, I'm asking. Why are we not addressing, we have less children in the building. We have less children in each class. So they are getting more attention by their teacher in that regard. There are smaller class sizes, more teachers, more administration. You keep saying there's not administration in the building. There is. And we just had Ms. Santos tell us there's another YFS in the building. So we are fully staffed plus with half the amount of students. Actually, let me rephrase, less than half, because there's a percentage that are out full virtual. So you're telling me that we have 4 administrators right now. Again, let me state this, 4 administrators, and they need more help. That's what you're telling me. But wait. We have an elementary school with 500 and change with only 1 administrator that has a lot more special needs and a lot more issues going on with the smaller children who actually need help more. But yet, that's okay. That's okay, because we're only going to talk about the high school. I just disagree. I'm sorry, but leadership needs to lead. Okay?
I just have to say.
Leadership needs to lead.
At this time, this is not a debate.
Then your daughter, who goes home depressed.
Excuse me, we're not gonna debate one another now. This is a meeting. It's turning into a debate between you and Jackie. We're gonna stop that right now. I'm gonna make a motion. I need a motion and a second to go into executive session in accordance with open meetings law, section, yes, Mark, 105F, to discuss the employment history of a particular person and exempt under open meetings law. I need a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jackie.
No. Good night, all. Thank you all for coming out. Because they wanted to debate.
I don't help you with that.
Of course I did. How are you? I know, yes, I